6:01, and we're all here, so let's call this meeting to order. It's the Acton Board of Select. No, it's the Acton Select Board. Almost got me there. We have two things on our agenda. Yes, I'm going to get the alcoholic beverage license application, the one day out of the way, and then we can go ahead and get into the meat of stuff, which is all the goals. I think if it's a one-day alcoholic beverages license, I don't have to read any special thing.
I meant for the meeting.
Oh, what do I have to say for the meeting?
The governor's number. No.
I think since we're all here in person, I don't have to do that.
Yeah, we don't have to do that.
Yeah, that's only
Even
for.
though there might be people out too.
Yeah, we ask Karen for that.
Yeah.
No, remember.
Yeah. So welcome to those of you who are watching on Zoom. Did anybody have any questions or comments about this one-day alcoholic beverage license application? Seeing none, I'd happily accept a motion about it.
Move to approve the one day alcoholic.
Thank you, yes.
Second.
And then it's been moved by David and seconded by Alyssa. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say yes or aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? No, that's unanimous. Okay, let's get that Powder Mill Animal Hospital filled with them. Okay, but just for one day. Now let's talk about goal setting. So I was looking back over the last few years of these, we're basically, it's going to be basically the same as previous years. We're going to develop a list of short-term goals, do a voting process about it, and then look at the votes and decide where to draw the line. How many could actually fit this year, how many can't. Because that'll depend on the size of the goals that bubble to the top. We'll do that once for short-term and then again for long-term. The one thing that's I want to do differently this year, though, is I want to start with at least last year's short-term goals, and then maybe the year before that. We'll see how it goes. The reason I want to do that is because of the continuity of, we've come up with goals, staff has started to work on them, and I don't want us to drop them if they're not done unless we really consciously say as a board, yeah, we don't really care about this anymore, or this is a low priority, or let's have it long term. So I want to start there, and that'll contribute some items to our list of possible short-term goals. We still have to vote. So even though we pull an item over, it doesn't mean it'll necessarily become a short-term goal, but at least we've taken a look at it. So why don't we bring that? Any questions about this process before we launch in? Okay, David,
How many goals are we doing for short-term and long-term?
we don't know yet. We're gonna list all the goals. We're gonna have a voting process that puts them in order, and then we're gonna figure out where to draw the line. Like if we have a whole bunch of really tiny goals, it might be a fair number. If ones that bubble to the top that are really big and they're going to take a lot of time and money and commitment to get done, we might have a very small number of goals. I want us to figure that out after we rank.
I'm worried about overloading, having too many.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
That's right, absolutely.
So I'm a little concerned with that, but.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think as a group, including the input from the manager, we can figure out where to draw the line. We can figure out together what seems like the right amount. Seems like a stretch, but not a break. Something that's possible to do.
And hopefully some of ours overlap.
So let's see. I got some notes about the sort of things I want to make sure to check for each item. Dave?
I'm really sorry.
No, please.
We also had in previous years a consolidation process where if I suggest sidewalks on Jefferson Street and you suggest sidewalks on River Street, and we merge that into a sidewalk goal or a complete streets goal or something. Are we gonna have a stage where we do that?
Absolutely, yeah, thanks for the reminder. Yeah, that's absolutely, I absolutely want to make sure we understand what's on the list before we start voting, and that we, you know, consolidate as makes sense to us. Okay, for each of these items, these are last year's goals. I'm gonna ask us to figure out, are they done? If so, is there a follow-up goal that people want to suggest? It might be short-term or long-term. If it's not done, do we want it to continue? And if it's not quite done, is it already committed? It's like it's going to get done anyway, or do we need to reinforce it with you know, adding it back in as a short-term or long-term goal? So start with an easy one. Hire a diversity, equity, inclusion officer position utilizing input from the Common Center study. I think that's done, right? We did it.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah. So since it's done, is there a follow-up, short-term or long-term goal that people want to introduce that relates to that short-term goal?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, you know, that person has a job and is, you know, busily working away on it, so that's great. The next one. Investigate the feasibility of implementing a town-wide building electrification program to convert existing residential buildings to all electric systems. So this has been started. There is this pilot program going on in the North Bryan neighborhood. I don't think we've reported back to the board on that program, so that was something I'd want to do soon. It's certainly not done in the sense that there's that phrase town-wide. The notion of this pilot was to start in one neighborhood, see how it went, and then learn from it. You know, maybe double it, maybe do 2 neighborhoods or 4 neighborhoods, and understand what it takes to expand it over town. So I would say it's not done. Do we want it to continue? I would say yes. So let's just at least add it to the list of potential short-term goals, if we could do that. Lisa, can you like copy and paste it, or is it, maybe this is something that can't be copied because it looks like it was put on a Xerox machine. But if you could type some version of it into the spreadsheet. Oh, look, it does. It is selectable.
This is me, that starts with different.
Okay, great.
I'm just trying,
Okay,
I'll stop.
magic. Okay, the next one is establish a committee charged with planning events and programs to commemorate the anniversary of the battle at the Old North Bridge that will occur in 2025. We did it, yay.
Yeah, we got the committee, they're hard at work.
Mm-hmm.
They've developed a speaker program. We just accepted all of the submittals for the logo contest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't think it needs to be, like, you know, everybody, all of the positions will expire in September of 26,
Mm-hmm.
and the committee will sunset.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it really needs much more care and feeding.
Great.
And I think the other thing, the only thing that might come forward from this is, depending on the costs of some things like speaker programs, that kind of stuff, we have some money in the upcoming fiscal year, might be something the year after,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we're in pretty good shape.
So what I'm hearing is the potential for, we might need funding for the actual events.
Yep.
And does that, do you have an opinion about whether that falls, does that rise to the level of a goal, or does that sort of feel like it's gonna be part of the normal routine?
It's gonna be part of the normal routine,
Okay.
you know. The committee's got steam behind it, I think.
Great, good. Alyssa?
I have to offer that I think that it does rise, not necessarily to a short-term goal, but it rises to, we need to pay attention because I think it's not normal routine, it's not even normal Patriots Day or normal 4th of July, it's 250th, so it's gonna need the level of staff support from the police department, celebrations department staff. to coordinate and also coordinate with the other towns. I know that Concord, Lexington, and Arlington are getting shuttles, which probably won't come to Acton, but we're going to need to coordinate with them with what they're planning.
So a long-term goal might be, the actually having these celebrations, to have a successful, adequately funded 250th celebration or
Yeah, we
something.
may not need to feed the committee, but we certainly need to feed the events
Yeah.
with the funding and also staff support for security and publicity, that sort of thing.
Okay.
We started a little, budget for that, kind of earmark for that maybe committee, marked as fireworks.
So, I mean, the celebrations budget was increased this year, I believe by $10,000. We also, though, appropriated $25,000 towards a fireworks celebration targeted for July 4th. So I wouldn't necessarily, of course, it's the board's discretion whether that should be available for this or not, but if there's the idea that we would do fireworks, for example, on this anniversary, that would be something that takes years to plan for. I mean, everything takes a long time to plan for, but that's a big expense.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that a good long-term goal would be, a potential long-term goal would be successfully having this event, have it be funded at adequate levels and staffed at adequate levels.
With fireworks.
I'm not sure I'm willing to add that in for the goal itself, but it can be part of our vision. And I see Lisa typing away, so you've added that to a potential long-term goal. Okay, great. Anything else to say about the Old North Bridge right now? Okay. The next goal, advance the design for the new Department of Public Works facility and prioritize the relocation of the existing fuel station.
So, we had money appropriated town meeting, $1.2 million. We have ARPA money approved for the design of the fuel depot. My intent is at our next board meeting, or probably the one, more likely the one in July, to bring forth a revised charge for the DPW study committee, because that committee actually sunsetted last year.
Oh, right.
And, we'll rework that, and I think, the long-term goal obviously is, we got $1.2 million, we're probably gonna need 30 million. So, I think that's a good long-term goal. Whether it's ready to go to town meeting next May, I'm not sure, but the manager and I have had a chance to discuss that. That's definitely a very significant long-term goal.
Okay, so let's, so Lisa, what's long-term goal is gonna be, construct the DPW, the new DPW building.
Approve funding.
Yeah, approve funding and for construct, yeah, exactly. There's a lot of steps along the way. Anything else on that one? No? Okay. The next one is, develop a new plan for reuse of the Asa Parlin building and surrounding grounds. It's the project that keeps getting knocked down and keeps getting back up again. Does anyone want to suggest a short-term or long-term goal? Or maybe it's the same, I don't know. Or maybe no one's particularly excited about this one.
I think that, the money was approved.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we've got a new design team at work. I don't know what else.
So we've got completing the design and actually making it happen.
I think one thing that we might want to consider is there was funding also approved for redoing the parking lot here, coordinating that with the Asa Parlin House, and
I'd like to see that all together.
I met with a very animated library trustee today about the design that she's seen for the new parking lots. I think that's might take some tweaks or some understanding or whatever.
Oh yeah, I think I might have had the same animated conversation. So what I heard from Fran, was something like maybe the parking area and the Ace of Parlin House are together a long-term goal, a short-term goal potentially? Or is there,
I would say.
he's got short,
Yeah,
okay,
short.
because we've got the money there and the design is almost done. So a potential short-term goal is to, you know, get the Ace of Parlin House and the parking areas done. Okay. Okay, advance efforts to study and implement housing stability services and programs such as new bylaws related to tenants' rights and new tax abatement programs. So I guess I'll note that we have the ARPA money set aside for a, you know, understanding how to do and doing some actual rental services. But the second part there about new bylaws related to tenants' rights and new tax abatement programs, my memory, David, is that this was something that you were clear that you wanted in there. And can you say something more about whether that's still, do you want to continue that? Do you want to carry that forward?
I'm surprised that I did I'm surprised that I would have said that if I said that. Certainly, I think it's important to have, you know, tenants' rights. I think it's a very difficult thing, actually, to, you know, put into a bylaw or a position in the town. I think we need to be clever about how we do that. I think we've made significant progress over the past more than a year, starting in the, you know, in the middle of the pandemic and continuing through last year. I would like to see that progress continue. I'm not sure what bylaws that I would suggest.
Well,
and tax abatement programs is odd in that goal,
Yeah.
since renters and tax payment don't intersect.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one possibility then it would be to carry forward the first part of that goal as a potential short-term goal, advance efforts to study and implement housing stability services and programs. Does that fit for people as a potential short-term goal? Okay, so we'll do that, Lisa. Take the first part of that sentence and stick it in as a potential short-term goal. The next one, implement the goal-setting process identified in the 2018 Environmental Sustainability Policy. So this one falls on my lap, and I did not follow through on it. I still think it's important. So rather than getting into all the rhetoric about it, let's say that I'd like to carry this forward as a short-term goal, potentially, and just to note that I understand that it will take me doing stuff along with everybody else here. The next one is seek necessary authorization to set 16 years old as the minimum age for voting in local elections and to establish a plan to improve election and town meeting awareness in town. Because again, that's another one of these two different goals got glued together. So it does seem like the first part, we are done 90%, right? And we just have to file the petition and then potentially give testimony. Okay. So that one's probably not a goal to carry forward. But the second part, would anybody like to recommend that we have a short-term goal or a long-term goal to improve election and town meeting awareness in town?
Well, I think I'm particularly interested in the suggestion bubbled up from a couple of places about town meeting and looking at changing the timing of the town meeting as far as investigating maybe a Sunday start of the town meeting. I don't think there's a whole lot else that we can do, and I think even to change to start on a Sunday, I think it could probably take a couple of years to do it. But I know it took us a couple of years to move town meeting to May from April.
Yeah, that's a start. But David, you got some.
Two things on that. One is just a general comment. I think something like this, or a code of conduct, or something like that, is really, to me,
Mhm.
work on the part of the board.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a goal in this goal list. It's something, Jim, that you can bring forward for a meeting,
Mhm.
and we can decide as how to proceed on that. You know, if we want to study whether we should have changes to town meetings, town meeting format or timing, we can do that.
Mhm.
And I don't think we need to make that a goal. We did just do this 4 years ago,
Mhm.
and we ended up back where we are.
Mhm.
After studying it and surveying residents and all sorts of things. I also would say that if we did want to start on that as a board, I think we should start with the moderator, who has also looked into this. She made some comments recently at a finance committee meeting
Mhm.
about this. I guess my two points are that my opinion is that this doesn't need to be a goal, even if we want to pursue it. And second is, if we want to pursue it, I would start with the moderator.
Mhm. Alyssa?
So I'm comfortable with that. I did have this on my suggestion list for a short-term goal. Knowing that there was a town meeting improvement committee, I did hear from a few people who resigned from that committee because they felt that their voices weren't heard, and the older generations were saying, we figured it out and so can you, even though, life is different now. But I am fine not having it be a goal where we form another committee that gets, spinning its wheels. But I just do want to mention that something that might involve the clerk's office is to have a look at precinct data and see which precincts are over or under, not over. We want them all there, and we don't want them all there because they won't fit in the auditorium. But if there are any underrepresented, and that speaks to this town meeting awareness, and maybe doing some more outreach if there are one or two precincts who are not showing up to town meeting and figuring out why, because then we might be able to decide if it's a different day, or if we don't take up new articles after 8:45, or we provide childcare, etc. But I feel like that does involve a little bit of staff support.
So, let's make sure it's actually on the list of the short-term goals. Town meeting, what do we call these? Accessibility improvements, and then we can understand it after the voting process how high it falls. We can dial it back if it's not a high priority short-term goal. If it's not a goal at all, we can at least discuss it at a meeting, make progress together that way. Let's see, that was that whole list of short-term goals. And we generated a few potential short-term goals. Can we look at the previous year's short-term goals? I think there's some stuff there that's, it either should be dead or brought forward. Okay, yeah, there were plenty there that I was looking at. Oh, yeah, that's right. So number one, I think we've already talked about, is a common house. Affordable Rehab Housing Trust was a short-term goal 2 years ago, and we're in the middle of an evaluation with the RHSO. So that seems like that would again be a potential short-term goal for us to consider. Yeah, okay. Just, I guess, change 2022 to 2024 at least goal. So Lisa, you okay with?
I'm sorry.
Moving over number two to a potential short-term goal.
Yep.
And we'll get to that. We do the voting. Establish a youth advisory committee. This was Himmage's piece. Does anyone understand where that process went or where we're at with it? Mr. Manager, was there any conversation?
Yes, we looked into it. There's actually a youth commission in Mass General Law that I think we had many years ago here at some point. we've looked at it and looked at how it would be applied here. And I think other efforts got in the way of anything happening. I think the Human Services Committee came up as sort of a good thing to focus on in the meantime.
Okay. So we could get back to this, especially if the board was enthusiastic about it. Does anyone want to move it to either a short-term or long-term goal to continue looking at a youth advisory committee?
I think it's worthwhile, continuing to look at it,
Right.
not necessarily that it rises to the level of a goal, but there are two youth members of the DEIC or network. I don't know if they're still there. Also the Agricultural
That's
Council.
right, yeah.
So I feel like it could just be looking at other committees to see if maybe we want to change the membership to allow high school associate members.
Okay,
For
so,
instance, Human Services Committee.
so I'm hearing, sorry. Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, have too much listening, I should slow down. Sorry to interrupt.
I was seeing a link between the Human Services Committee.
Yeah. So there might be so it sounds like what I'm hearing is a potential long-term goal about exploring increasing youth involvement in committees or something like that. Does that fit for you as a potential long-term goal? Okay, so let's make sure that's on the list. You got that, Lisa? Yes, I can tell that you do. Evaluate the DEIC Commission recommendations and implement policy and staff changes. It could be that this is so well underway that we don't have a particular follow-up on this, or maybe do people feel like there's a short-term or long-term follow-up on this?
So 2 of the 4 things were done. The other 2 are, as far as I'm aware, in progress.
Okay, yeah. And do we need to make it a goal to help that process move forward, or does it feel like it's in motion?
I think it's in motion.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll leave that off for now. Find a way to extend the rent relief program. So we have done various ways of extending the rent relief program. We put ARPA to bear, and we've been trying to get SMOC to do their job. I'm not sure what it did, but are we done? No, because the ARPA money is going to run out. So are there people here that think that they want some version of this in either the short-term or long-term goal list?
I think the need is ongoing, whether the ARPA funds run out or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is even appropriate, but maybe segue into some sort of small budget for the human services coordinator. So,
Are there other funding programs available? Because I know we instituted, but CARES and ARPA, but are there state programs that provide this kind of funding that we might chase?
there's always money to chase.
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, so I think we were successful in getting a competitive grant through the CDBG program. As we're not entitled in community, there are dozens of communities that get CDBG funds every year to do things like this. We're not one of them, but during the pandemic, we became eligible because of a special program. And that was how we started the initial program. And then after that, we had the actual CARES money. And then after that, we had the ARPA money. I don't know if there'll be programs like that for non-entitlement communities like Acton. I haven't heard of any. I hope there will be, but I haven't heard any at this point.
Can you just spell out the acronym for?
Community Development Block Grant.
Thank you.
Dave?
So we just talked a little bit about tenant services a while ago and how we made progress. I don't know if this is the place to do it. Maybe we should, or one of us can insert a goal later, depending on how the process works, to have some kind of focus on tenant services, rather than maybe specifically stating rental assistance or any other particular thing. Tenant services were the biggest single category of comments during our hearing. In other words, they received a plurality of the comments. So I think we should have something there. I don't know if you want to put it in here or whether one of us suggest something later.
What is the, Lisa, what is the short-term goal look like that we've already put in about rental services?
Advance efforts to study and implement housing stability services.
So maybe just a clause like including rent relief, something like that in there, just so we haven't lost track that that's included in there.
So housing stability is a particular thing.
Services and programs, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, services and programs.
I would have preferred a more general term, related. I mean, so housing stability applies to non-renters too, and I have nothing against housing stability, right? I mean, it's essential to people's, life stability, right? I think there are more categories of things than stability, unless we say that rental assistance and other kinds of assistance that we've been providing people contribute to security and stability. I mean, so I'm fine with that, just as long as that's understood, because it doesn't say the word tenant in there, or renter, or.
Is housing security more appropriate, since stability refers to this very specific?
Yeah, I don't have any, that would be fine with me, and.
Just to address the issue of housing insecurity for anybody renting.
So that's a suggestion, I'm seeing some, so that's a suggestion to change housing stability to housing security, is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay.
Or addressing housing insecurity.
Addressing housing insecurity, okay. So can we change that?
Which includes mortgage, utilities.
Right.
So programs and services that address housing insecurity.
Okay.
And it seems to me that would imply forms of, we've had rental and mortgage assistance.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense, yeah, I don't know if it.
Do you want me to read it back?
Yeah, thanks.
Advance efforts to study and implement and addressing housing insecurity services and programs.
Perfect, thank you. Form a Department of Public Works Building Study Committee, inclusive of the Department of Public Works Building, Transfer Station, and Recycling Center Complex. So I think we've already addressed this. Yep, okay, good. We have let go of working on redoing the transfer station and the recycling center, although we do have a staff group working on the possibility of, changing the model of how we do trash pickup. So I guess that's related to that, but it's not, it's sort of on its own little piece. And now, John, that work, I think that was sort of taken under the environmental umbrella. Did that come out of the sustainability office, the work about thinking about driving around, having a trash pickup program?
Yeah, it was one of the recommendations of the climate action planning process is to look at the impact of the climate impact of the current way we do solid waste and recycling in the community, which includes private haulers.
Okay, and we've already told them to go off and continue to gather information, so they're doing that. And if they come back with a specific recommendation, we can think about making it a short-term goal. That feel okay to people to let that go? Okay. Determine the process for allocating the ARPA funds. Done. And they're all allocated, right? We don't have any more ARPA decisions to make, do we?
I think every year, I think it's in October or maybe January when it was first established, I would come back to the board and just give an update to see if there's any reallocations or changes that need to be considered.
Okay, so it doesn't need to be a big goal, it'll just happen, of course. Okay. Form a social services committee that can explore a team of therapists and social workers in an effort to increase mental health resources available to the community. So we do have a human services committee. They're temporarily in trouble, but they will certainly continue to explore. So I don't think Do you see a follow-up needed on that, or we're just, it doesn't need to be a goal?
I don't see it as a goal.
Okay,
I think
great.
the committee is getting footing
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay,
come out stronger.
yeah. Complete phase 1 for Gardner Field Playground, check. Looks really nice, well, almost,
It
but
does.
it looks really nice out there.
It does.
And all the wooden things are beginning to come together.
That's a big pile of dirt for kids to climb up.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can see
yeah.
little kids just gazing at it.
Yeah, yeah, it's so great to see that project come together. Work with the Acton Dog Park Committee and the Acton Housing Authority on design and construction of a dog park and a cohesive design for the whole site. Check. Is there a follow-up goal?
Yes, I actually will be presenting one.
Great. Go ahead and tell us what it is now,
So-
because we have it written down.
Okay, so what we've got is, because we added the senior park in between, so it's the Main Street campus. The application for the construction funds was submitted to the Stanton Foundation, I believe, today or yesterday or whatever. So possibly we'll get $250,000 on that.
Mm-hmm.
There is $0, other than some design on it, $0 allocated towards the senior park.
Mm-hmm.
We did, there's a whole bunch of site issues. A number of committees are working very hard on this.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know, first off, we don't know if we're gonna get the $250,000 from the Stanton Foundation.
Mhm.
And we don't know exactly, we suspect that the bids coming in, or the cost estimate for the dog park might exceed what we'll get from the Stanton Foundation. And then we still got the senior park, and it makes sense to get at least some of the senior park done at the same time the dog park is being done, because you have the same contractors working
Yeah.
adjacently. So I will be suggesting a goal to advance that. What did I write on that? I just put down Main Street campus support.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are on that.
Yeah, so securing the rest of the funding and planning out how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the, some of the answers will come up probably this summer. Once we hear from the Stanton Foundation and we get the construction cost estimate.
Great.
And so it might be something that we might be looking for capital money for approval at the May town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It might require some support from the select board to put in an application for CPA funds.
Right.
So a lot of those things will be a lot more clear probably Labor Day.
Okay, so that's a short-term goal. These are
Short-term goal.
Thank you.
Let me add to that.
Alyssa?
So I have that and the 53 River Park on a long-term goal.
Mm-hmm.
So development of the two parks on Main Street and the River Street Park, because I've heard some rumblings that the cost, the money is not going to be there, is not there for what they want to do, the big plans, so they may have to scale back, but just piggybacking onto that capital support.
Mm-hmm. So that's a
Very-
long-term goal for you.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
just consolidated,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
consolidated the Main Street parks
Right.
with the River Street parks because they seem to be parks that didn't have enough funding.
Mm-hmm. Is it okay with you if we consider them separately?
Sure.
Okay.
So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, good.
I have
That's
that on my
perfect.
list too.
So since you released a rumor about the River Street, Mr. Manager, could we have a short update on what's going on with funding for River Street?
Sure, so we went out to bid this spring. The bids came in higher than we wanted them to. We did secure a $1 million grant from the state, and we have several other funding sources, including ARPA, that are contributing to this project. We are seeing if there's any other funding out there from those external sources to help cover the gap to get the dam removal project completed. There is no expectation that we'll be able to do a park in the current stage of the project. Our goal now is to remove hazard dam,
Right.
which I believe we'll be able to secure funding and be able to do that without having to rebid the project. And if that happens, we'll have to come back next year at town meeting. So I'm working very hard with our partners at the state and others to try to see if there's any help that they can provide.
Okay, you'll be working on that. That's great. And then this last one, implement changes for town elections. I think we've already talked about this, but this has some nice additional details. But I don't think we need to, I'm suspecting we don't need to add anything to our current short-term and long-term list, David?
I believe we completed that.
Oh, okay,
Right, that was
even better.
the process of delaying town meeting by a month.
Right, okay. And
And,
then we move the elections as well.
yeah. Yes, move the elections as well.
Okay, good. So we don't need to follow up on that. Okay, thanks for indulging this experiment in how to come up with short and long-term goals. I just felt like, I just didn't want us to drop any of these old short-term goals without some consideration about it. So let's go back to the regular process that we did last year. Lisa, maybe you could bring up the spreadsheet so we can watch you magically type in things as we say them. Is that kind of fun? Yeah, please.
Please don't
Will
show.
we do this also for the long term?
Yes.
For the last couple
Yeah.
of years?
So, I think what we did last time was we went round robin, we each suggested one short-term goal, and then after a while, some people ran out, and then we just kept going until we had, a whole bunch of short-term goals. So, anybody who's ready to start, I'll call on them, and then we can go clockwise from there. Who's got a short-term goal record? Dave?
I'd like to see tenant abutter notifications for all hearings. Basically, we notice people, if their property owner is within, depending on the type of hearing, X feet from the thing. I'd like us to include the tenants as well. It just doesn't matter. So if we give a list of people to contact to a developer who they have to notice, that would include renters.
Got it. Let's see, clockwise. Fran, got one to suggest?
I will create land tree clearing limits.
Okay. Seems like it's been in my email. Yeah. I'll suggest, and why don't we put the phrase town meeting in there, because with the number 10, because to do that, we have to bring land tree clearing limits to town meeting for number 10.
Oh,
For number 10, yeah, just change create to bring.
Oh.
Because we can't create them all on our own. You have to get the town meeting.
But all of these, we don't list the steps.
That's true.
Yeah, I think the goal should just be the goal, not the
Yeah.
steps.
Okay,
That's my,
yeah, okay, so I won't make that edit in for any future ones. Thanks. Let's see, how about, implement zoning changes to meet MBTA zoning standards and help meet Acton goals. Zoning changes to meet MBTA zoning standards and help meet Acton goals. Now, I know we have this legal requirement to do something about MBTA zoning, but
implement zoning
Standards
changes to
and
make
Acton goals,
zones.
standards and Acton goals.
And what?
Acton goals.
And I had a read on this, just, I had South Acton, but I guess this is more broad, this is good.
yeah, it's focused on something, it ends up being focused on something, but, okay. Lisa, can you put the phrase MBTA in there somewhere, like, to meet MBTA zoning standards? Thanks. Alyssa,
I would like to see us implement a traffic calming policy.
Yeah, we've seen those from some other towns. Dean, what you got for short-term goals?
Okay, number one is a new position for a project manager in the Department of Public Works. This would be dedicated individual specifically geared towards accomplishing projects. We can, our ability to fund projects and conceive of them far exceeds our ability to actually implement them. The kind of things that I'm thinking about is that, you know, the number of missteps that occurred with the Acton project. There's been a lot of, well, not quite as obvious, but there's been a lot of issues back and forth with the dog park, senior park, that sort of thing. Looking at some of the other projects, 53 River Street Dam, we ended up having to hire a consultant to help us with that. Yeah, some of the things have been approved at town meeting this year, like the narrow boardwalk. I don't think there's enough capacity to supervise those kind of projects, not only from an engineering point of view, but also from a paperwork point of view, public bids and that sort of stuff. So that would be a short-term goal, but it would involve accumulating funds or reallocating any existing positions to create somebody specifically dedicated to doing those projects. And you've got, you know, the recreation director comes up with great projects, and everybody comes up with great projects, but they don't have the depth and the capacity to accomplish them.
It's recorded. Thank you. David, you got another short-term goal ahead?
Put sidewalks into several neighborhoods where the residents are strongly supportive and safety needs are greatest. So I just say several neighborhoods as a short-term goal rather than sidewalk the town.
Does that explicitly exclude things like, oh, my favorite, one that to ponder, Brook Street, because that's not a neighborhood, but it's on the sidewalk priority list, and we have no idea how to put sidewalk there?
Wouldn't explicitly exclude anything.
Neighborhoods or locations?
But there are, and I don't know how many people walk that right now, right? And so I don't know. I do know that there are a couple of neighborhoods where the sidewalk is very strongly supported by the neighborhood. And I know other places where people walk in the street all the time. And so I would be just me personally, be supportive of Brook Street if that's where, if people walk there all the time. Otherwise, I think there are other places in town where people are in the street, in a medium busy street, all the time.
Okay, so this is about moving forward with sidewalk planning. Fran, got us a goal?
So quite a few of my goals overlap, and they're really based in economic development, little arena. So one big transportation, when we've gotten a ton of email about it from various constituents, reinvigorating Crosstown Connect. I know when I'm out and about wearing an EDC hat or visiting business owners, you know, they're just puzzled why they don't have Crosstown Connect coming to their plaza. So I think we need to visit the transportation.
Okay. As a short-term goal, I'm hearing like revitalize the transportation program?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dave?
I would rather see a more specific goal than revitalize the transportation program. Revitalize the transportation program is not, I don't know what that means. Right.
So what at least wrote down was more specific, reinvigorating Crosstown.
Right, of our publicly supporting transportation initiatives, I would agree that Crosstown Connect is probably the most important of them.
Okay, so there's a short-term goal.
Well, I'm just saying that it could be weighed against other last mile programs. There may be, one of the problems here is that Crosstown Connect and other programs are really expensive. We have to find a way to fund them. And so therefore efficiency of a means of transportation is very, very important. And so, there might be a word other than crosstown, which is more general, but maybe more specific than just transportation, allows people to get around town, or I don't know what the thing is, just be very specific about it, is a subsidy of a ride sharing service more efficient and even more convenient for people than Crosstown Connect. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's worth asking the question.
Shuttles.
Well, I was thinking, at some places, just subsidized Uber. So, people can go on an Uber ride within some circle, for $1. And that also could allow them to go to a doctor in Concord, or something,
Limited.
They wouldn't necessarily be, and I'm not saying that that's the answer, but I think that if we're gonna put a goal here, I would like to see a goal that looked into that, to see what the best alternative is.
The Transportation Advisory Committee got an email, or did that also go to the board, select board, I forget, but it was about, starting to investigate a program that's basically, wraps around Uber and Lyft and allows people to call, use a regular phone to call a number instead of having to use a smartphone. And then they turn around and, contact Uber and Lyft and get people places. So I'm wondering how to express, I understand that, so Crosstown Connect is our one particular way of dispatching vans, a few days, you call a few days ahead of time, and between 9 and 3, you can get places. Lisa?
So I think that I'm in agreement with David that it needs to be broader, and I'm wondering if diversifying our public transit options that are available to residents, because in the emails that were sent to us, not only by residents, but by boards and committees, like Transportation Advisory Committee, Council on Aging, Commission on Disabilities, Kids on Aging. They mentioned things like funding $85,000 that was available for taxi, subsidizing Uber drivers, ride sharing, also hours, like senior centers up until 7 on Tuesdays with the shuttles. The Crosstown Connect stops at 3. There are stops that have been eliminated, fixed route. So just diversifying and broadening the availability of public transit in town. And I would say that it seems like it's an issue I'm hearing from residents, that it's an issue for them to get to doctor's appointments, and not just in Acton or Concord, but in Boston. So I guess maybe that Uber would cover that as well. You mentioned $1 to go to Concord, but can they also get to MGH?
So we'd have to figure out what was allowed, and, because taking an Uber to Longwood would be $100 probably. And so what we can afford to subsidize, I don't know, but I think you said broadening, I like that word.
I heard diversify and expand.
The only thing I think is that you need to weigh doing something else than Crosstown Connect, right? I have nothing against Crosstown Connect. If it turns out that Crosstown Connect provides the best service for people in town, I'm all thumbs up. But Crosstown Connect is an expensive service, and it has inherent limitations unless it gets much more expensive, like hours, right? People want it to run into 8 o'clock at night, which is perfectly reasonable. But, and then if we're doing another mode of transportation for that late night service, well, maybe that would be better to do the same thing through the day. I mean, again, I don't have the answers, but I would like to see, yes, whatever we put in the goal, to say to ask those questions.
So an assessment, really.
Assessment and broadening, or
expanding.
Expanding.
Yeah. I also saw a mention of smaller vans. I don't know how full the bus is for Crosstown Connect, but maybe if it's not full, then maybe smaller vehicles. I know there's an issue of driver shortages, so there's a lot to look at.
it seems to me just off the cuff that you could have, a ride sharing service that did not follow a fixed route, that took people point to point based on a call thing, and then after hours it went to Uber. Then I'm just throwing that out there, right? And that's just one idea. I'm sure people can come up with 20 ideas.
So we have, there's this big universe of possibilities, and certainly an early step is to, get our transportation coordinator. Now with Stuart Pearson, is we end up hiring somebody new to do this, and the transportation advisory committee, and have them come to the board and have us, bring us up to date. Because I think, I've been hearing these things because I'm the liaison to TAC, but the whole board hasn't been hearing all these great conversations about what's possible.
I had a Minuteman Art Caper presentation at the HSC at our last meeting,
really?
and they're even open to collaborating because they have vans that sit at night on weekends.
Oh,
So
nice. So what's the language we have there right now? For now, Lisa, I want to make sure it's general enough that we understand it.
I did reinvigorating the Crosstown Connect / diversify and expand on. I'm just waiting for what the final is going to be.
Our public transportation program.
Rather than Crosstown Connect.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that second phrase could replace the first, so you could actually get rid of the stuff before the slash. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and that'll have to start with some research. Yeah. Okay. And luckily there's lots of people that want to educate us, so it's good. Where were we when that one came up? Okay, so that's okay. Let me get my computer up here and find you another one. Improve information flow between the select board and committees. We've done this in various ways in the past. I think this work would mostly fall on the board rather than on staff, but I wanted to list it as something that, might be worth a conversation or two and some effort.
I like that.
Could you just expand on that?
Sure.
We have to vote on it.
Yeah. So in the past, we've tried things like in the Mike Gowing era, there was every 6 months, I think, there was a meeting of all the committee chairs, and they would, share information about what they're working on, what their goals are, what they need. And that was really helped with, having the committees understand what each other were doing, and it gave the board a great sense of what was going on too. In the past, we've had we've had select board members writing reports about what's actually going on in their committees. We've had the member minutes, which were initially intended for committee reports, but have expanded to other purposes and don't actually have a lot of information about committees sometimes. And the other half of this is to have sort of an early warning system for, are there committees that are having troubles? Are there committees that are, not getting things done, so that we can, put our minds together and figure out how to be helpful. And are there committees that are doing things that are really awesome and new that the other committees could learn from? So yeah, that's the sort of thing I'm thinking of. I think it would be a board initiative, and I'm happy to commit to working on it, but I would need all your help too. Does that explain what I'm thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's mine. What's another one?
So related to boards and committees, I would like it if we visited the volunteer handbook.
Oh, yeah.
Or perhaps an update. It was published in 2014. Also checking in on distribution, whether or not it's actually, linked to the PDF is being sent to new volunteers. That can just be included with, the link to OML and the conflict of interest. But also the process with the VCC. I'm hearing that there's a little bit of difficulty tracking when people's terms are over, and the process by which they are asked if they want to continue without looking to a wait list. I'd love for a wait list to be available to us so we can see who's applying and who's been waiting, because I would hate for someone to be on that wait list for a year and then, well, I guess they don't want me, and miss an opportunity to snag a new, fresh person. And I've also heard some, that there's some problems with getting people on the shell. And I know that staff is in some cases kind of chasing that, like the department staff. So Bettina might chase and see that somebody's on the open space committee shell, and so she's just like sending IT a notification, but IT really wants to hear from the clerk's department. So just streamlining the process whereby volunteers get the information they need, they get onto the email shell, they have access to possibly an updated volunteer handbook. And I'd also like to see some in-person trainings again for everyone. So lots of volunteer
We've got it down to like
stuff.
4 lines.
Sorry.
That's still pretty long for a goal.
Yeah, it is.
Can you see what's there? Does it look okay to you? Does it cover the things you want to cover?
Yeah, I think the most important word in here, Lisa, is streamlining. Just tightening up those processes of getting people
So before the word
approved,
process,
appointed,
streamline process?
appointed, and then sworn in, and getting the training that they need and getting them on the IT shell, or the email shell, sorry.
So it's the word streamline before the word process.
Yeah, the second line, where it says and process, what's it, and streamline process.
How would you take onboard process for volunteers?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, onboard, yeah, that covers everything
Onboarding.
that I just talked about.
Yeah,
So streamlining the onboarding process.
yeah.
And maybe we could remove the VCC actually from there, unless you think you need that.
I think that there may be some support from us for that process of term renewals. Whether or not it's appropriate, because if there's somebody on a wait list and they've served 2 terms, it's probably appropriate that we bring somebody new on rather than reappointing them. But, balancing that institutional knowledge with fresh perspective is a fine balancing act, for sure.
Okay, good. We might come back and refine that a little bit.
You think?
It's on its way. Dean, another short-term goal?
Figure out the disposition of 19 and 21 Maple Street.
Oh, yeah.
You stole my goal.
That's a good thing,
Good,
right?
good short-term goal.
Yeah, yeah.
We keep talking about it, but I think we need to make sure it gets done.
Yeah. David, another short-term goal?
Remove the River Street dam.
Fran?
And I was gonna just defer to John. And I know, investigate options for wastewater management in targeted economic zones. So are we doing that? I don't know if I can limit it to Great Road. I don't know if we have little ARPA funds that we allotted for that. Refresh my memory.
So the ARPA funding of 100,000 was set aside for a wastewater solution study for Gray Road, which was actually combined with the water resources study for Gray Road. And they're mostly done with that. Well, they've done a lot of it on the draft report. And that's just Gray Road, no other areas.
It's just
And it's just the portion of Gray Road from 27 West Concord. So not the entire Gray Road.
So I guess I will broaden mine and just investigate options for wastewater management in targeted economic zones.
Okay.
Can you repeat it again, Fred, sorry?
Investigate options for wastewater management in targeted economic zones.
Melissa, you got a question?
Targets?
Yeah, targeted economic zones.
I'm just wondering if you might share, for our benefit of voting, what those are?
Target.
If you, what are those zones besides Great Road? Are there other areas that you're thinking of?
There's West Acton, there's South Acton.
So any,
Okay.
Here's one that came over the transom. Understanding PFAS pathways and reducing exposure risks. And reducing exposure risks. So this is sort of taking a look at the wider world of PFAS exposures, not just from water, but personal products and all the other stuff that's causing PFAS to come into our water stream.
Can I ask at a concrete level what you would do there? Right, if you're talking about personal products.
It could be education. It could just be education, like these brands are filled with PFAS. You might want to skip those, or maybe you only want to wash your dog once a month. Or whatever it turns out.
So they understand is kind of disseminate information.
Yeah. Do the research and then find out. This also includes the things like the mysteries about are there PFAS leaks from the capped landfill? Because there was some question about that.
Are you saying that that's included here?
Yeah.
So that's more than just disseminating information.
That's true. Yes. So understanding includes not just research, but actually looking, doing the testing to understand what it is.
I would suggest that this might be a long-term goal, considering that these are forever chemicals and the regulations are changing. We're gonna have new maximum contaminant levels. Possibly regulations that come down on mitigating it at the wastewater treatment plant. I don't know if that will extend to septic. There's PFAS that's 100 times in private wells. So it could not just be education, but assistance in coordinating, not paying for the testing, but maybe helping residents who are on private wells find someone who can do sampling of, say, a neighborhood. That might be the health department that helps to coordinate that. I had it in long term.
I buy that. Why don't we change it to long term?
Are we discussing any of these now? Are we discussing them at all, or?
Well, we will discuss them if people want to have more clarity on any of these during that consolidation phase.
So these are wildly different things to me, right? I completely agree with the point treatment of wells and things like that, because PFAS is in the environment. Us understanding and spending any money on figuring out if the landfill has PFAS in it, it almost certainly does have PFAS in it, right? Except that it's a little old, it probably predates some of the PFAS chemicals. But PFAS is being put into our environment all the time by us, and so all of us, right? It's in takeout food containers, it's in pizza boxes, right? And so I don't see the use in discovering that it's in our environment, right? Because we need to control it going into the environment before we try to remove it from anything except immediately removing it from the water we're drinking.
Mhm.
Right, I understand that in the water treatment plant and private wells and all that makes perfect sense to me, that, but to try to remove it from any place else, it makes no sense to me, considering it's still being added to. I mean, I would be really happy with instead of a ban the bag, a ban the takeout food containers that have PFAS in them. Because that helps the situation. But discovering it exists in the environment, that's not, to me, that's not helpful, right? And it's a lot of money, and some of the, first you were talking about disseminating information. Okay, I can get that, right? I can get clean water, because, yes, but any other spending money on things to discover that PFAS exists in the environment, I'm not sure that that's the right place for us to be spending our money. It'll be extremely expensive to do. In some sense, you can guess what the answer would be, and then what do you do about it, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing, if we discover that the landfill has PFAS in it, we can stick to it, right? Then what do we do about it, right?
So one thing we could do is join a class action lawsuit like the Acton Water District did, and just, they're getting a tiny little portion, since there were 4,500 other water suppliers that were part of this class action lawsuit. But I think that your idea about a bylaw or perhaps putting pressure on our state legislators, because I know that they have a bill or two in the works for getting PFAS out of the product stream. So I think that that's very much in our purview as a select board for the residents of Acton.
Just before we do too much more back and forth, so clearly this is a complex and interesting topic. I'm happy to put it on the long-term list for now, because it's gonna take us a while to understand the different aspects of this. So can we just move that over to long-term for now? And we'll talk more about it another time. It seems like it's a good agenda item for us to get some education. That was mine. Did you have a short-term one?
Yes. How about let's conduct an objective analysis of establishing an independent sewer commission or a
Right.
sewer advisory committee?
Yep.
You can just write sewer commission analysis, Lisa.
A what?
Sewer commission analysis. Conduct.
Great. Dean?
Look at zoning solutions to resolving issues of odd-shaped lots.
Okay, yes. We're entering the petition stage of the short-term goals. That's good.
Well, it'd be a good idea even if it wasn't a citizen petition.
Yep.
Oh, to petition us, sorry.
Address option. That's great. You
It's
got
hard
it.
to listen
It's
to
fine.
listening.
No, you
Oh,
do.
no,
That's
sorry.
Just get rid of one of the S's, you're good.
I should have brought my glasses.
Dave?
Great road safety and complete streets improvements.
Right, we got the study now it's gotta be. Fran?
I'm back.
Okay.
What is
real-
it?
Improvements
Great solution improvements?
instead of solutions.
Oh, improvement.
I've got, real estate transfer tax to fund affordable housing. Concord just filed a home rule petition on this topic, and, we can learn from them.
Can you repeat that, please?
To fund affordable housing.
Somebody is really
Alyssa?
I consolidated some of the zoning fixes. One was the odd shaped lots, which is minimum lot width and lot area calculations. But another zoning issue is some regulations around energy storage systems. For instance, we might help guide these companies to particular parcels through zoning. So if we established restrictions like already cleared land, or they need to be coupled with solar. Groundwater protection zone 1, reviewing allowed and disallowed activities and maybe including PFAS in there.
So, zoning bylaw changes related to
Related
ESS?
to land use.
Okay. I think we might want to be more specific, so we
Yeah.
can vote for.
Yeah, so the examples for the odd-shaped lots, the energy storage system,
Yeah.
groundwater protection zone, and then there was also a suggestion to have a site plan special permit for auto dealerships.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people say maybe we could lower the number like we do liquor stores. Maybe we don't do that.
Good.
So I think that we could limit the number without a site permit. In fact, I don't think you could actually limit them with a site plan special permit. But what I would say, and not covering what well, you already said, somebody said,
Yeah, it's about the.
yeah. I would say consider zoning for X, Y, and Z. Consider zoning changes to address X, Y, and Z, just to be clear, right? So if you want to list your 3 things or whatever, it just makes it clear what we're,
Should those be separate? I mean, it could be that somebody feels really strongly about zoning changes for energy storage systems and doesn't feel strongly about auto dealerships.
Yeah.
So I think we want to split these up so we can understand the individual level of support for these.
Yeah, we might, well, I don't know, if we split them up, then they're less likely to all make the cut, but, you know, consolidating them seemed like a reasonable project because they're, you know, similar review of zoning. It's in my mind, it's similar to the silence that we had on the film production companies, right? There's nothing there to tell somebody who wants to film in Acton what the process is. So there are some places in the zoning that there's nothing said about them. Energy storage systems is one of them. Obviously, land clearing is another one because we don't have site clearing and tree clearing.
Should we add that to this?
We have a separate one for tree clearing.
So maybe we should add it.
did we already do tree
I
clearing?
think so.
We did,
I think
yeah,
so, yeah.
and I'm just saying that I consolidated tree clearing and odd shaped lots
Right.
into, and let's look at our zoning and see what fixes we can make to address some of the issues that have come up recently.
I think it's important to have them segregated,
Okay.
because ultimately, if we move on one of these goals, it's gonna end up gonna go to town meeting, it's gonna have to be a clearly defined objective.
Mm.
And it could be that, you know, energy storage facilities could be a simple answer, it could be that we don't have the authority to regulate that. So, then you're done, but I think, you know, come with a list of the, you know, 3 things that you think we should study on zoning, and have 3 separate goals, and we vote on them and decide which ones we're gonna prioritize this year, and we can always get another bite at it next year.
So.
Okay, so I guess then energy storage systems would be one that
Yeah.
hasn't been added yet. Reviewing groundwater protection zone
Mhm.
for allowed and disallowed activities, and then the auto dealership is the
Okay,
third
so that's
one.
3 short-term goals instead of that one.
Yeah.
So zoning bylaw changes related to energy storage systems, changes related to auto dealerships, et cetera.
The groundwater protection zones, did you have specific things you were thinking about?
PFAS.
Oh, so an industry that uses PFAS or something?
Well, yeah, uses, washes, stuff that goes down the drain. I don't think it was, I don't know if there's something that's for drinking. I imagine before.
Groundwater protection,
Water protection.
groundwater protection zones. Or districts, right?
Great. I don't have any others. There are other short-term goals out there.
Yeah, I've got one more. I think we need to talk about the economic development plan.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, yeah. I was picking out little things from their plans.
Mhm.
Detail on that, or?
Create one?
Yeah, create an economic development plan.
Yeah, good to have groups there. What we did last year was we did this work tonight, and then at a future meeting, we actually, voted it in after we had a chance to, stare at it and, like, make all these parallel statements with verbs at the beginning and stuff like that, so. But tonight, we'll do the work. Are there other short-term goals to add? Dave?
I have several, and as two of them, I think we can discuss if they make sense to everybody. One is I had electrified several town buildings. Rather than a long-term goal to electrify all the town buildings. And it doesn't have to be several, we can say two, even one as a short-term goal. I don't know what people think, right? I thought to me, it made sense to have a short-term goal to have some fixed number.
John, can you remind me, in our capital planning, do we have the public safety facility next on electrification?
Yeah, so the, with ARPA funding, we're trying to find an designer to do the design for electrification of the public safety facility and the town hall. We were gonna do them one before the other. We're finding that they both need to be done. They both are the highest priority in terms of making sense from a building system standpoint. Police is reaching end of life for all of its systems. Town hall is far past that. So I think, and the library just had a bunch of work done. So we're working on those two buildings right now, just to get the design. We wouldn't be able to do this year.
I guess one of my questions, David, is, and for everybody, what's the time frame for a short-term goal? A lot of the stuff that I suggest for short-term goals are things that we can accomplish with existing resources in this year. And I suspect that, obviously there's gonna be a huge cost of electrifying any of these buildings. So that's gonna be something that's gonna have to go to town meeting next year. So is it more appropriate that we consider a long-term goal?
Fine, I'll bring that back for the long-term goal. That was, I said two of these had questions. The second one, I had was to advance a code of conduct. But I was originally thinking that work on the part of the board would not be a goal. So, but we seem to be doing, we've had two or three things now that I consider that, it's 90% work by the five of us. And we have made them goals, and we can segregate them at the end, I think you said, if we want to do that or something. So I would advance a code of conduct as a goal.
That would eventually involve, some town council time, and so there is some staff involvement, but I agree, it's an effort of the board. And I'm fine with having those as goals, as long as we're clear on that.
And my last one is the intersection improvement at Main and Hayward.
Right. We had a previous goal about all the Main Street improvements.
Right, that was the long term.
Yeah, but this is the next one.
This one is completed the design already.
Okay. Thanks. No short-term goals? Okay.
Can I ask one
Please.
question about the traffic calming policy? Before I was on the board, I sent you all a link to Concord's. So I just want to be clear because there was a lot of discussion about some that were not understood. So I just want to make sure that you are clear on what that means because I didn't say anything about it.
David?
So your policies are just us. So I didn't ask anything because I assumed that Jim has to put it on the agenda. And we discussed that someone brings back a draft, you for example, in this case, and then we discuss it again, So policies are just.
So maybe So what I saw on the Concord town website was a little bit more involved than just a couple of paragraphs to provide direction. It seemed like it involved staff. So public works, police, because it establishes a process by which a resident could bring forward an issue. I want a sidewalk on this road, I want to change the speed limit, I want to narrow the street, I want to, shorten bump out the curb, make it more of a right-hand turn, whatever it is. And it there are criteria that were established for meeting yes, we can address this versus no, this isn't something that we'll address. So that's definitely a staff, we don't have that expertise. And then you mentioned that there were some neighborhoods where most of the neighborhood was in support of the sidewalk, and this actually specifies that you need to have, a certain percentage. I think it's 70% of people sign on that they're in support of whatever change is proposed by the resident. So it's not just a board policy. It's a flow chart and a procedure for dealing with those issues.
I haven't looked at our complete streets policy in a long time. I'm forgetting how detailed it is.
Yeah, well, it overlaps with complete streets and with sidewalk construction and with, It also, one of the reports that I was looking at, because I went back to see that some of these goals were those intersections on Main Street, and I came across a safety audit of Jefferson and Musket. Yeah, and I was interested to see that there wasn't enough data collected in the report, the police report, for them to actually utilize effectively some of the crashes that they studied. There were like 22 crashes, but 8 of them they didn't know exactly the location, or there just was so this would include maybe identifying areas that need to be beefed up in the reporting process for crashes in town, so that when safety audits happen, or when we look at making an intersection change or roadway change, we have really solid data to base that on.
Yeah. It also it seemed to try to address the issue of that changes happen in neighborhoods that are like particularly well organized. It's like no, okay, it's fine that you're all lawyers on this street, but we have a criteria for proceeding on these things. So you have to go through a process. So it's not just the squeaky wheel.
I completely agree with that. That's one of the reasons I said that in my thing, that where neighborhoods are supported or there's significant safety issues.
Yeah.
I think both can be, criteria by the neighborhood being supportive is kind of, the neighborhood is not against. Right?
Sure. This was, I think, go door to door, get sign a paper. And I just wanted to mention that I did get a couple of emails just to my email address asking for safety. And even though we didn't hear about it at public comment and we didn't get it under the subject line goal setting, certainly you heard from many people after the crashes and the deaths. So I think it's high priority for residents to address traffic calming and safety, like your goal is it has to do mostly with safety.
Yes, I completely agree with that's a great goal. Just as and kind of an explanation, I just suggested that we do several pieces of important sidewalk, just because the sidewalk can get stuck in that. It's a huge thing, right? It's multi-year, multi-million, and I just wanted to put it in there. The reason I added it as a potential goal was that to keep it moving, right? And we make some progress each year.
Yeah, we have there's the part of the capital improvement plan where there would be borrowing to do a lot of sidewalks. That would be a major action for us to take. It's definitely coming up in the capital plan. Was that this year, Mr. Manager, the borrowing for sidewalks?
So our goal would be to bring a proposal during this budget season that would require the support of the board and then the support of the people.
Good, that'll be a good chance for us to address that.
I may have done, did you see the email from Franny Osmond?
When,
She just,
I replied to,
oh, you did?
yeah.
Yeah. We just don't let people comment.
Right.
You can sit in, yeah. Sorry, yeah, she just was misunderstood that, folks couldn't sit into this meeting.
yeah, that was not
Yeah.
something that,
Yeah.
I told her.
No, I'm not saying that you did, it was in her email. Sorry.
So you were saying.
I
another
may,
short-term
I
goal?
may have one more short-term goal, along the lines of, additional staff for public works. I was thinking, and I'm new, so don't have as good of a handle on staffing and responsibilities as all of you. But the health department, someone mentioned that perhaps an inspector could be shared with another town, like a building inspector was. And I was also interested in asking John if the posting for the environmental analyst position, because I think I read stormwater monitoring, if that might help with that, or if the health department could use additional, half an FTE or. They have a lot, summer camps, restaurants, grocery stores, stormwater, septic, noise complaints, beaver trapping. The magnitude is so enormous.
It says fever trapping.
Beaver trapping.
So they do track disease too, though, as part of the public.
Yes, that's what I
So
mentioned.
to answer, I think one of the questions, the energy analyst position is actually one of the core responsibilities is helping with our stormwater program. The health department, we've transitioned that oversight from health to public works. And
Okay,
and part of that is this new analyst position, which would work with sustainability and public works to do several things. One of them is help with our stormwater program. And we use contracted services for dry weather flow testing and all the other things that we do for our stormwater program. And this person is gonna help with that. To the question about sharing an inspector with another town, we love doing things like that. Are you looking for us to be the one that's taking advantage of the extra help or giving the extra help in this scenario?
the first. Taking advantage. To make sure that we have enough staff hours to handle all of the inspections and the follow-ups if there are. I don't even know if they happen.
Yeah, we could look into that, sure.
Okay, so this potential short-term goal is increase staffing on inspecting, increase in health inspection.
Department,
Yeah,
staff sharing.
or, staff.
So implement or?
Well, there's.
Maybe explore, is that the first
something
step?
to explore, yeah.
You're looking to expand staffing capacity, whether that's.
Yeah,
you're
so
not looking
like
to share.
regional housing services gives us expertise and hours, but it's not a full time, it's 10 hours a week. So is there something similar for health professionals? You know, we're sharing building inspector, we're sharing housing, is there something like that?
Yeah, I think the benefit of the RHSO is it's a very particular set of skills that they have and expertise that they have that a generalist in planning may or may not have. I think expanding staffing resources for health, it would be helpful to understand which particular set of skills we're looking for.
So I had on my list.
I guess I don't know what the, sorry, Fran, I don't know what if any, there is of a need, if there's a need for more hours for just an inspector, or if there's a need for any expertise that we don't have.
Related
if
to
it's
something
just-
specific.
Yeah, if it's just health inspector and it's not that specialized expertise, it would be similar to sharing a building inspector or an electrical inspector with another town.
I have mine related to tenants' rights, but that's so broad too, so.
Okay, I think we're ready to answer this list, don't we?
Can I just ask a little bit? So, John, do we feel that the health department is short-staffed currently? Or is it?
That's not my, current understanding, but if there's a particular concern, we can address it, and through more staffing or otherwise.
You know, if there is, you know, related to Fran's statement, you know, even if there were, especially if there were surrounding towns with multifamily dwellings and specialty things there for health, perhaps we could hire someone and then share them with another town.
So, yeah, so I just anecdotally have heard that sometimes there isn't follow-up with an inspection. So there might be a violation and an order from the health department and then the inspector for a landlord to address an issue that is then
So it is-
not addressed, and then there's no follow-up or maybe difficulty reaching people by phone or email and not getting a response. And I'm also just learning as the Board of Health liaison, just how broad their responsibilities are. And it seems like everything under the sun is encompassed in public health.
I'm eager to get to the voting part, because we have this and then we have the long-term goals. So can you sort of scroll up maybe, and we can take a look if there's any like burning questions that would prevent people from ranking these things.
Beat column a little bit, so we can read it.
I see what you're saying.
And Lisa, did you say we had the capability of printing these out? Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna print them out. We're gonna have 5 copies. And so Lisa, here's a question for you. We can either the way I want to do the scoring is you're gonna have your first choice, it's gonna get 20 points. Your second choice is gonna get 19 points, and so on, just down from 20 down to 0. You can't pick more than 20. And then we'll just add those numbers up. So we could either, if it's easier conceptually, we could just number them 1 through 20, and then you can do the work of translating those back into numbers. No, okay, we will do that mental work ourselves. We'll put 20 against exactly one item, 19 against one item, 18 against one item, and so on. And then they'll get added up. David?
Is that too many?
No, it just gives us, right, it just gives us, it gives us a more fine-grained ranking. Well, we won't end up with 20 goals. I mean, because that's way too many. But we'll understand what order they fall in. And if there's.
Some little short-term goals, at least the first turn into long-term goals. And then
We can, when we're done with short-term, if there's some that don't make the short-term list, we can consider moving some of them to long-term. Or we'll go, oh, I guess that's not particularly important for people, maybe it doesn't fall to the long-range goals. And now we can watch Lisa play with printing, which is the most difficult thing about Excel, in my opinion. It's just doing stuff.
Yes, please.
Ready?
Yes, please.
Okay, so short recess while we get the printing done, and then we'll get pieces of paper in front of ourselves and start writing numbers in front of us. And you don't have to write all 20.
You can also print that sheet to a PDF and then print the PDF.
But I have to send it,
Oh, I see, yeah, okay.
because it's not in the network.
Transfer that?
I have a lot of other pieces.
All right, so Jim, this,
Yeah.
I know I don't.
my rather simplified mind.
Mhm,
So when we get the sheet,
mhm,
if something is my number one goal,
mhm.
do I put one beside it or do I put 20 beside it?
Bingo, put 20 beside it.
20,
Otherwise, we're gonna make Lisa 5
And-
times,
Inverse the
change
numbers.
the
Yeah, yeah.
numbers, which is just.
We'll do the work. That's why we got the big bucks. And you don't have to go all the way down to one. If you get 5 are really important to you and the rest are not, you can just go 20, 19, 18, 17, 16. I don't care about the others. Expanding up seems good.
This is a comfortable room.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my favorite one.
It is my favorite room too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have a lot of folks on Zoom?
There were 11.
We're still on.
Okay, yes. I feel like there should be an interpretive sign helping me understand how all these things are connected. Are these all prints from the same person?
Arthur, right?
Oh, okay, this is Arthur Davis, or whatever his name is? Okay.
I guess all you did is the signature.
Oh,
Arthur
okay,
Davis.
okay, great.
There was a CPA grant.
Oh, okay.
To
Got all these like
get
frames
these
and,
framed.
yeah. Where it is?
Because I knew before they ran out.
Yeah, no,
Collection.
yeah, yeah,
Box.
yeah.
You know, you recommended I choose 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Got 7. Come close, Steve. It's better than 12.
Yeah, I think. Smaller is better.
I was so worried to disappoint you. How did it come out? I was not. What did it say?
Yeah.
I know, I David, we didn't formally do the consolidation phase, but I think we sort of covered it as we went.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I feel like we Separated more than we consolidated.
Yeah. There's, they talk about that as, clumpers versus, separators. There's different approaches to planning and thinking.
We could try to run, some of one of those things where, you put these stickies up.
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah, so everybody writes out their stickies, and everybody puts them up there, you pick up a sticky, you put it, my sticky, put it next to Alyssa's sticky, because it's almost the same, and someone says, no, it's not the same.
Yeah, that's really good when you have like 50 people
I hope so,
do
I
planning.
hope so, we're moving along.
There's a lot of those brainstorming.
Yeah. The stickies change how meetings work. Big meetings. Look at that.
There you go. Everybody have a pen?
Okay, there's too many good ideas.
The electrify several town buildings made this list, but also the long-term list.
Oh. Okay, well,
Well, the long-term was like town-wide, it was just carried over from.
No, this is the one that's fourth from the bottom.
Yeah.
Electrify several.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where is it,
This one we took, fourth from the bottom.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones we talked about towards the end, and I thought we decided, because Dean made the comment, we're not gonna make any progress this year.
Mm-hmm.
So should we discount that one, or?
Just,
Are you saying it's on here twice, or it's on?
No, during the discussion, we moved it to long-term,
I see.
so.
so just don't vote for it. It'll show up again. Unless it's the most important thing we need to do, and then we'll just not do these other things. Just go do that.
We have 2 weeks currently, yeah.
20
Yes.
should be, yes,
Yeah.
19.
Yes, yeah, got it.
Forcing the choice is cruel, but it's important.
This is what I can do. It's too long for me, missing my brain.
Consolidated lines.
Which ones?
Code of conduct could be consolidated with volunteer handbook, because there's actually something in there already about behavior.
Done.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's all over there.
Let's go down to the street. So that's 5,
6.
16.
What are you saying, David, for water dealerships? Instead of site plan special permit, you just put a number on it.
So
You
there
did
can
it
be,
at Bob's store.
there can be a named use, I forget, it's not called named, special use.
Okay.
So like,
And then it's named.
for example,
Line 0.
car washes are named use in our zoning.
Mhm.
And I don't know if there's a limit, but they're explicitly listed as to where you can put them, and there's certain conditions on them. So we can have water dealers that we have where you can put certain conditions on. Whereas,
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Number 50.
So you should have 2 raised there.
Water use, but car
3
dealerships
right there.
used to be
1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah.
We just don't
8
have so
correct.
many, like,
And
maybe
0.
so many restaurants or
Right.
things.
but just, a site plan special permit, they're only, it's really hard to vote against them. I mean,
Yeah.
we're limited as to the moment. You can put conditions on them.
I'm not a percent.
It's not, you're not top,
Okay. Steve.
you're not top of the list.
Oh.
There. Right, 2 7. 4 0.
I want to
Big,
wait.
big ones are.
Yeah.
13. Sorry. 9. 10. 16. 13. Okay. 4 0. Great. 2 zeros. And gray 0. Cover.
Next. Okay.
Well, there's nothing there.
Oh.
Just keep it in.
I gotta tell you this.
That's fine.
Okay, great.
I love all my children.
No, in my case, I'm messing up the numbers. Like I have 2 16s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like making one of the two.
Maybe if you
Get
get
it
a
out of the way.
bonus. Did you use the 20 numbers? Did you go that all the way down to 1?
No.
What'd you go to?
I think I down to 10, maybe 9. Very focused.
I don't even think of doing that.
You can do that in ranked choice voting.
Yes, I was just gonna say.
Oh, I don't really care.
0.
It would be fine.
19.
It's really sad because
0.
you just want to do everything.
Absolutely.
You can't.
Yeah,
0.
yeah.
4. 0. 18.
couple of years doing this. Something that we invested in. And we only had a certain number of CDs. On the wall.
That's exactly what I.
And, yeah, and Mark says, oh, you put them all on red, huh?
I did that in the base apartment, which is bad. And here's one still voting for his.
Yeah,
Right.
Some of these are related, interrelated. So.
So that means that there's an opportunity
Hold on.
after the list is.
Redo.
For
Oh,
that
God.
piece,
Yeah.
when we.
Start from the
flesh
side.
them out and
Okay, we can collectively decide to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Get it on your.
Right.
Yeah.
Two,
Exactly.
3, 19, 8, 0, 12. 1. 7. 1, 1.
You want?
12, 1, 7.
Mhm.
0, 11, 17, 9, the big one, like 0, 13, 0, 18, 16.
Sorry, I used all the numbers. I'm realizing.
Even then, you had to leave behind, yeah. Well, how many were there on this list? It's pretty big, right? 28?
Yeah.
36. 36, okay, wow. Yeah. We leave a lot behind.
Yeah.
And then I was sort of fast forwarding to tell me, why are we not, but.
How would you have wanted to, I mean, this was a little hard to do it in the spreadsheet. What's the thing? Oh, good, okay.
Yes.
I wanted them to have little cards, you know, try them in different orders, and then they're like, oh, that one in front of that one, you know, and then put the deck together. That would take a lot of pictures.
Let's go
Or sometimes there's software that lets you, you know, it forces you to put them in order. It doesn't let you choose the one.
Because it's also projects that will probably happen anyway, even without,
What is it, number 32?
Right.
prioritizing,
It's
right?
nice to have them put in order and
and
then
not number.
they
It's like-
exchange.
Well, it's very buses. That's very buses, it's for staff sharing with neighboring towns, and all that kind of. Yeah.
Am I holding people up now?
No.
No.
There were daggers.
I think I am holding people up. Sorry.
Thanks for taking it seriously. See, these are some of the key decisions we make.
It's fun to see the things you can check out. And we actually did that.
Yeah.
Because this is in the break from policy list, so it's automatically just who's been.
Yeah.
Let's save it. Let's save it unsorted.
Okay,
Let's do the last one.
okay.
Then save it unsorted. And then ready to move on. I'll walk it.
I don't need to look now.
So let's go.
I can talk more about it.
On the long term. Oh,
3 zeros. 11,
It's this one, right? The town that develops specific national goals.
Yeah.
Related to sustainability, so
Yeah.
that piece has not been done yet.
Yeah. In particular,
That to me is a very interesting thing to have in the policy, like action items and policy.
Yeah.
2, 3,
it's somewhere between a policy and a
14.
Okay. Yeah, usually if there's an action item, it's in the policy, it's how I use this.
Yeah.
0,
Yeah, the confusing or tricky thing about that is that it's
16.
in town-wide. So it's not just us deciding what should be done, it's just this process. It's
5,
like,
yeah.
town-wide, how many EVs do we want to have in 2 years?
0,
Okay.
1.
Just
Not even electric.
Everybody was playing work on What's that?
I have so much to do before then.
Oh, wow. Undo that.
I'm fighting for an induction stovetop. That is like, yes, that is.
Alright, so we already good. 5.
We have electric anyway, so,
Mhm.
but I am attracted to the induction.
Yes, yes, they're much more powerful than
Yeah.
the regular.
Yeah.
0.
Oh, you're attracted to a magnetic stovetop.
4.
I did some cooking lessons, and that's still,
Yeah,
there's a couple of cooking classes on
Did, yeah.
cruises,
Oh, it's fun.
because he was all,
Yeah.
15.
Viking anyway, was all, and,
0.
yeah, pretty so fast.
Yeah, it does get fast.
All right, so we save this as,
But then you can turn it down to just,
Yeah.
so low.
So no, so
Chocolate.
go down here,
Yeah,
right click,
impressive.
copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
It's also, it's
And
fun.
then say create a copy.
So the opposite of non-stick.
Change that,
Wrong.
change that to wrong.
Yes.
Right.
You're getting ready for shit, doesn't it? Can you feel the movement?
they're so big.
We were in a cooking class one time, it was right outside the kitchen. And they took a road way, it was in the turn, and, all you could hear was breaking. Everybody's dinner. I tell you what it was.
Over there, I feel you.
We learned.
Sounds like, okay, alright, go here. And then sort that one. Yeah. Sort that one.
I don't know, maybe you can,
Largest
bring it in by
smallest.
drone.
Okay, and that's,
You want me to say that one?
Yeah, and then, you.
And then they can do their ranking as far as if they want, how many they want to do.
That's funny, yeah.
so, so Jim,
Yeah.
we put the numbers in, we have the spreadsheet filled out with the total, we have everybody's names with their values. Would you like us to print that or show it on the screen or both?
First sort it in order of votes,
Check.
okay? And then let's take a look at it.
All right, let's share. So, you got it.
Okay, we're back. We're back with the live results.
Wait, save that, just save that spreadsheet. That's get weird.
Okay.
Not weird, you know what I mean?
I know.
Most points I think could have would be 100 if we all chose 20 points for the same one.
I'm sure that's not likely.
No, but just so you know where things are, what the scale is.
Here we go.
Ooh.
Thanks for doing this, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next task is to go through these one at a time, make sure we understand what they are and understand the basic scope. And this is gonna involve you, John, because we wanna draw a line when we get to, enough, not too much. Some of these might be small, some of them might be big.
And then condensing some maybe.
Yeah, there might be consolidation that happens too. So we had a lot of points for great road safety and complete street improvements. John, do you need to know anything else about what that means before we understand that it's our top goal?
No.
Okay, that's one piece of job. Advance efforts to study and implement and addressing housing insecurity services and programs. And we can correct typos and parallel uses of the word and so on. We can address that between now and when we bring it back to the board. But that's a set of stuff that we understand that we all want to do.
Can we just move services and programs? I think it should be advance efforts to study and implement services and programs that address housing insecurity.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that would be more clear.
To address housing insecurity.
Okay, that's.
Did you want two or that? Okay.
Just giving you options.
Okay, then we've got number 3, diversify and expand on public transportation program. Now, we understood that was vague because we knew that we needed to start by getting information from, staff and from the TAC about what the options are, but we said this is important. Close behind that, remove the River Street Dam. Complete the design of East Parliament House and parking area, and complete it, I think was probably the phrase.
I don't know why that's happening.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think we're gonna change the word completed to, and build it or something like that.
Construct.
Construct, yeah, there you go. We're all okay with this so far? We're following this around, okay? And have you gotten to the point of pain yet, John? Are you saying this is too much?
There's Claire, I guess removing the River Street Dam is a very specific goal
Yes,
that doesn't have anything else with it,
right,
such as creating a park.
yeah.
And I just wanted to make sure that's the intent, and it seems like it is.
I think the park is gonna be a long-term goal.
Right,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, implement a traffic calming policy. We have some examples from Concord and other places. Disposition of 19 to 21 Maple Street. Create economic development plan. Investigate options for wastewater management in targeted economic zones. Well, that's not actually, that's investigate. It's not deciding, it's not building anything, it's exploring it. Okay. Bring land tree clearing limits to town meeting. So we'll have to, have a process for working on that, which we can talk about at a meeting. A new position for the program manager, for project manager for the DPW. So now I'm just looking at the numbers here. We're a bunch of very closely, then there's a gap here. Then it gets fewer votes. So one possible place to draw a line would be here. That would be a lot of goals though. But maybe these are small enough that they could actually fit into a single year. But let's keep going, make sure that still fits. Zoning solution to address odd-shaped lots. Specific task for the planning department. Secure and advance Main Street campus monetary support. And install sidewalks into several neighborhoods. And conduct a sewer commission analysis. So I wouldn't want to go any further than that, but I wonder if people want us to go have fewer goals.
There's one more that's before your big gap.
Oh, okay.
17.
Oh, yeah, consider establishing an affordable housing trust for 2024 town meeting. Okay. Thoughts on whether this is too much? That many goals.
John, were you?
Yeah, I don't know that Yes, I think 17 is a lot of things to prioritize for 1 year, for depending on how long you look at it, but yeah, and through town meeting, I think usually it's in the 10 range. But
Well, one option would be, are there things in here that people are clear actually gonna take more than a year, that we should be moving to long-term goals?
I see that for, creating an economic development plan. I'd like to see that, work into the master plan. So I don't know if that's a long-term goal or, no offense to the EDC, but yeah, I'm just wondering maybe that if that's a long-term goal.
I could agree with that. I think it's a long-term goal.
We might be starting stuff this year.
Right.
Alyssa?
This is the top goal, but I see great road safety and complete street improvements as a multi-year goal. I also wanna note that some of these, 17 does seem like a lot compared with previous years. But I think that large gap is very compelling as far as, the consensus of the board and their priorities. And some of those items are small in scope, or small in dollars. For instance, the estimate for the sewer commission analysis was $20,000, and it would likely be done by someone outside of town hall and the select board. So it wouldn't take up hours. It would just be a matter of determining what to do after we get a report. Also, I feel like the odd-shaped lots, a lot of work has already been done in the design review board. Same for the land and tree clearing limits. In fact, they've already not only created the 3 different pieces of the limits, but they've presented to the planning board for input. So I say.
I think there's a lot of discussion for the tree clearing limits. I see that in some cases, the tree clearing limits, I think, conflict with stormwater requirements. And I also see a preference there for single family homes. In fact, in one place it explicitly states that it doesn't apply to single family homes. So I think there is a lot of work to do. I mean, there's drafts are there, yes, but kind of for me, only one of those 3 drafts I agree with. So I don't know what other members of the board think. Never mind what the public think.
I've only seen the presentation to the planning. I haven't seen any different drafts than that they brought to them.
No, there's 3 different bylaw drafts. So they proposed 3 different bylaws.
The DRB?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I understood that.
Right,
So one is focusing on
yes.
preemptive site clearing. Anyway, we don't need to get into the details.
For me, I only
but you're
agree with
saying
one of those. And I think that they're, in some cases, they conflict with stormwater requirements, and in other cases, prefer single family homes to multifamily homes, and I'm not sure those are both correct things that it needs discussion anyway.
So we have, so far, just to sort of take a step back, we've suggested a couple of strategies for limiting these numbers. One is to move some of them to a long-term goal, and we've heard that particularly about great road safety and complete streets improvements.
And number 9.
And number 9, potentially creating an economic development plan, that's right. The other thing we talked about was some of these could be softened to be like initial steps, secure funding for installing sidewalks, or research and traffic calming policy, or so there might be things that we could either soften or move to long term. So I think that,
How many do we haven't gone through long term.
we haven't gone to long term.
Lisa, did you add some to long term?
Yeah, she's already got to start on
How many are there? Just so I know how many there would be if we moved some over.
We've only got up to 6. So.
well, only 6, but in the last several years, there has been between 5 and 8, just FYI, for the last 5 years.
Yeah, well, that's why we have to vote, because some of
Okay.
these won't make the cut.
Oh,
for a long
good
time.
point, thank you. David, same.
So, okay, David.
I don't agree with moving the Great Road safety and complete street improvements to long term. I think the safety issues there are important that we need to, we voted. That it's the first goal, and so and we already have a good start on it, and the state may pay for some of those, and so I would not like to move that one. I agree with Alyssa that some of them, though, like the odd shaped lots, is pretty straightforward. I think there are lots of examples in other communities for that, and it's mostly just reviewing what other communities have done and choosing an approach. It's something the planning department is very good at. It wouldn't take them a long time to do.
So I just want to respond to that. I am aware of the amount of work that's already been done, because I went to both public forums with a consultant. The multi-year implementation is, we're not going to get funding and the construction done in 1 year. So it could absolutely be a very, very high priority, even if it's in I don't see long-term and short-term goals as any different in priority importance. I just see them as, this takes about a year, maybe we bring it to town meeting, and long-term goals is something that we want to have. You know, we can't commit a future board to any particular thing, but a long-term goal provides the staff with guidance for, you know, we're all in with this. I mean, Kelly's Corner is taking 3 years, and that's just one intersection. I mean, it's a huge intersection, but if we're widening, narrowing, adding sidewalks, bike lanes, narrowing intersections and adding crosswalks and walk systems and needing to go through the state permitting process, it's just gonna take multi-years. That's all I meant by
I'm trying to synthesize both those points of view. One possible way to do that would be to make progress on Great Road safety and complete streets improvement. Does that fit?
Sure, I mean, the state's already started, they're putting the sidewalk in the Concord section.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it doesn't like the Acton section, but, and a hawk system can be put in. I mean, I agree that we're not gonna be done for years, but I'm concerned about the state of that roadway. You know, I don't, for me, what I'm trying to say is I don't want it to be treated as one big project where we go through and plan for 3 years. And like Kelly's Corner, right? Where it took a decade of planning.
Okay,
Right.
that's not what I meant.
No, I'm not saying you did, I'm not, but I mean, I agree with Jim in that sense, to advance some, make progress on it.
Okay, so let's change number 1, or sorry, number 2, to make progress. So that makes clear that it's important to make progress on it, and we know it's going to be a multi-year project.
And the forum was so informative and a lot of information.
Yeah.
I think some of the other goals, like 8 for disposition, 1921 Maple Street, I mean, that's an RFP process. I think the manager and economic development folks have already started on. So I don't think that's a big lift, and remove the River Street Dam. You know, we've got, the bids have been received, it's just a question of, coming up with the money, but, I don't see that as absorbing a huge amount of staff time,
So we have a couple of options with that. We could either keep it here and just know that it's not a big deal, or we could ask the town manager if even if this thing was removed, would you still be doing it? So let me start with the second one first. John, are there any items on this list that you have to do anyway, that you understand what you need to do and you don't need it as a special goal in order to be extra motivated to do it?
Well, it's not really a question of my motivation. I want to do all these things. It's really about what we have the capacity to take on as an organization. with the staffing that we have and
Yeah.
the resources that we have. So we're doing several things to respond to the climate emergency. And as part of our climate action planning, there's a lot of other things that we're doing as part of best practices for running municipal operations that are not reflected on here.
Yeah.
And we'll continue do those because that's our jobs. I think this is our opportunity to know what the board wants us to be focusing on as we're preparing our budgets.
Yeah.
In this summer, later this summer, early fall, and just as we're working on other things, if we know that we have something that's on this list and something that's not on this list, we know that this is the priority.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're faced with those questions regularly. So, so would we continue to work to advance safety on Great Road if this wasn't a goal? Yes, we would. But would the state think that's a priority for the town if the board didn't have it on its goals?
Right.
No, they wouldn't.
That's right.
So this is also a policy statement of the board to say, this is important to us, and all you funding agencies or residents that are concerned about what matters to us, this is what matters to us.
And I love how that got used.
Yeah, it's nice to have something go right to the top.
So jumping off of that, I'm inclined, very much so to have a longer list because of the flexibility that it affords, because I also don't see this as what the staff would want to work on. It's more so it sounds like when you suggest, would you be working on this anyway, so it doesn't need to be a goal? It's like you're all committing 40 hours a week on this anyway, so let's add some more goals that add more hours on top of that. No, I think that we need to include things that they're already working on to acknowledge that there are staff hours going into this, but also show priorities so that as things change over the course of the year, we can see these are all, priorities. Whereas, I'm looking at the 2022 goals and I checked them all off. But then going back to a year where there were, 10 or 11, a couple more goals, there were some that needed to be rolled over in the next year because they weren't completed. So I'd rather have more goals on here to afford the staff the flexibility, but also show as the year progresses, look, this is also a priority, and when we complete this, they have direction right here as to what to go on to next.
Yeah. So to build on that, when we say these are goals, these are not plans, these are not commitments,
exactly.
These are directions.
We'd like
So we're saying in advance to John that we're not expecting him to accomplish all of these goals in 1 year. And if that's okay with people, then we could have a long list.
I think you previously set the expectation that many of the goals would be accomplished.
So we can check them off.
Yeah.
It's a tough call.
Yeah.
So I mean, it sounds like we have two choices here. One is to have fewer goals, knowing that some beyond the bottom of the list will be tackled. Or to have many goals, knowing that some above the bottom won't be tackled.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a given though. If there are some that don't make the cut, I don't have confidence that they will be tackled because they're not on the list. So what I'm saying is I'd rather have a longer set of goals and some of them not completed than to have a shorter list with all of them completed but no direction. I mean, obviously, John can come back to the board, for additional direction, but why not just use this opportunity since there's such a clear gap there between number 17 and number 18. That tells me that this is what the board would like to address this year.
If we did that, I would propose including number 18, because I think we're required to do that by law.
Implement zoning changes about the MBTA zoning standards. Yeah.
And is that gonna take more staff and money? Because I feel like the MAPC has gotten us to, I don't know what happens with the implementation after we get to the deadline at the end of the year.
I think we're working on it already.
We are, and we have a deadline of the end of December, but in
So-
terms of staff time to implement it or funding to implement it, I'm not clear on.
So the zoning laws have to be written
Yes,
and then presented to town meeting.
oh, and, okay, so then that is a big, then I agree with
And
that.
that's all we have, we don't have to build anything or anything, but we have to just write the zoning laws. And which means getting input at planning board and probably select board meetings.
Okay. So I'd agree with you, include that then.
If we are headed towards a longer list, it's this 16, 17, 18 long list, I would want to go back and soften some things. So, start the creation of an economic development plan. Understand our options for diversifying and expanding on public transportation program. Something along those lines to make it clear that, we don't expect in 12 months that we're going to have a vastly diversified and expanded public transportation program.
So, an exploration to diversify and expand the transportation program.
That sounds okay to me. In fact, for that one, if we were gonna spend any money, it has to go to town meeting anyway at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And we also talked already about moving the economic development plan to law.
Yeah.
I know, I was like,
So
I
let's
might
see, let's add the word
rethink
explore
that.
there.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I like the idea of creating an economic development plan.
starting
To think about creating,
Preparing to start.
preparing to start.
But Jim just suggested adding the word start in front, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Start to create economic development plan for number 9.
Initiative.
Yeah,
Initiated, you're getting started.
Yeah.
I like 1-syllable words when they're available. Let's see, are there any others that could be appropriately softened? Install sidewalks into several neighborhoods. I don't know if that happens in 12 months. But maybe it does.
Probably several neighborhoods is too much, but we have some budgeted money in this year's budget. Right, but not a huge amount.
Yeah, I think secure funding to install sidewalks would be a short-term goal. I think installing,
Yes, I understand.
it takes longer.
Okay, good.
Yeah, High Street only took, 30 years?
Maybe secure funding for sidewalks in several neighborhoods. We just take out install.
Oh, yeah.
I think the town center looks so pretty.
Yeah. Nice sidewalks. Yeah. Well, we could sit with this. This might be good enough for now. We won't be finally making a final vote on it until our next meeting, but if we have a really long list. Go ahead, John.
I think the board would typically establish the goals at this workshop, and then you would just establish how they present, what they look like in written form.
Yeah.
I don't know that in the past, it hasn't been determined how many goals we had.
Yeah.
When we come out of this workshop.
It may be just the nature of things this year, I like to see goals that really can be checked off. But maybe it's just the nature of things this year that things we want to do are difficult to check off.
Yeah. John?
But wouldn't that make them long-term goals?
Thoughts? Because that would be the other way of dealing with some of these, is to the ones that we can't complete, that we know we can't complete, we could move to long-term goals. Long-term goals doesn't mean we don't think about them this year, right?
Yeah, and I'm just gonna come back to my I'd rather have flexibility,
Mhm.
you know, because we talked about the youth advisory committee, which was a goal, but it wasn't accomplished because, you know, I'd rather, if we run into difficulties with implementing one of these goals, we can't check it off, I'd rather there be something there to work on. As long as we're being transparent with the public about why, you know? So when they look at our goals and they say, oh, this hasn't been accomplished,
Mhm.
we tell them.
So maybe that's a
We ran into these challenges, it was much more expensive than we thought, or this law changed, or whatever the reason is. Because a goal is something that you strive for, right? And I love checking off goals as much as the next person, but I also like flexibility and expansive thinking.
Well, that's the difference between short and long term, right?
David?
I was wondering if we might, firm up a few of these and maybe move one or two to long term. So, you know, the explore ways to diversify and expand the public transportation program, I feel some of that's already been done. What we would need to get out this year is have a concrete plan that we could move forward. You know, let's just say it was changes to Crosstown Connect, which required an additional van. Or let's say that it was, you know, some of those ride sharing services where we needed a bylaw or a funding source or something, you know, that we would be able to plan to do that rather than just explore.
So I think what you're suggesting is we change this back to diversify and expand on public transportation program, but put it in long term.
Or get plans, you know, for how to diversify. In other words, we come out of this year with a plan that we can, you know, so what I'm trying to say is that whatever we decide to do, we're ready to bring it to town meeting in May. Right? Not postpone it completely out of this year, right? That we have something, we can't accomplish it this year, but we should have something that we can bring to town meeting in May for that particular goal. So that is indeed I'm worried about some of these moving, you know, especially some of our higher priority ones moving into the next year or the next year, where we, you know, we kind of kick the can. You know, I'm looking to have a concrete deliverable, and if we can't, I agree that could be long term, but that is specifically one that I think we should, you know, explore in some detail.
I'm a little torn as a facilitator because I love this conversation and I also notice the time. And that we haven't even gotten to long-term goals. So one possibility is we leave this as it is, do our long-term goals, and then decide what to do next. If we need to do more goal setting in our next regular meeting, we'll do that. You know, in an hour or so, my brain will just shut off anyway. So I think maybe this may just be a big enough challenge that we need to spend some time in our next meeting.
It's possible that all five of us are decided on whether or not we think it's better to have a longer list or a shorter list, so we can
let's
just
talk
take
about
a
that.
straw vote.
Yeah. Quick go round on you know, which would you prefer, shorter list or a longer list? Dean, got a quick thought on that?
Yeah, we talked early on about drawing the line at, you know, including 40 and not go below that. And I think, you know, I would be in favor of doing that. And, you know, if you want to shorten the list up a little bit, I think we could, you know, for instance, the economic development plan, I think there's no way we're going to get that whole thing done.
Yeah.
So that would be an easy one. That just begs to be a long-term goal, and I would suggest we move that out of there. Put
Okay,
it in long-term goals.
okay, so I think what you're saying is a long-ish list is okay, but we
Yeah.
can shorten this a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, Melissa?
So I'm okay with a long list, and I'm also in agreement with David that we leave things on so that we can get started, even if they're multi-year, like the economic development plan and the Great Road Safety and Complete Street improvements. So I'm okay with the long list without moving anything over.
Okay. Fran, where are you?
I wonder, I don't know if John could give us direction on what he sees as long-term or short-term or deliverable in a year.
Mhm.
But I would see if I say a shorter list, then some of them get cut off. But maybe we can do a shorter list and just move things that we think along, switch over to long-term.
Okay, so ask the manager and maybe some things could be moved.
Can I say one more thing
Yeah,
on
please.
that? So not only does this allow staff to see what our priorities are, it allows the 35 boards and committees. Because I know a lot of boards and committees work on bringing bylaw changes and other things, initiatives, so it provides that as well.
David, what's your inclination, long or shorter or what?
I guess longish, right, I would, include down to 18, because I think that's what we need, line 18, I think that's what we need to do. And I would be in favor of moving the economic development plan to long-term. So moving number 9, including the list down to 18.
So I can be on board.
Sorry, I guess I misunderstood you.
He
I
said
thought-
exactly what you were saying.
No, I was in agreement with him to
Yeah.
leave it here to at least get started on it.
Oh, I see, I see. So the differentiator for me is there a deliverable in this year? If there's a deliverable in this year for the economic development plan, I'm okay leaving it here. But see, to me, the Great Road thing, there is some work that we need to deliver there.
Okay.
The transportation program, I would like to see a decision made as to how we're going. That's the differentiator for me.
Okay. John, do you have an input for this?
John, yeah. So we're trying to talk about whether we a shorter list or a longer list and or somewhere, we'll move some of them to long-term.
Namely, the economic development plan.
Yeah,
Is what your thoughts are
Right,
with that.
That's, yeah.
I think, secure funding for creating an economic development plan that's a good actionable goal
Okay.
that shows that you're making a commitment to the initiative, but it's not the same as, well, I guess starting isn't much different, but
No, but
it's
secure
more,
funding is an actual.
it's a more direct ask of everybody, yeah.
Would people be comfortable changing that to secure
Yes.
funding? Okay,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Yeah.
So
Thank
number 9, we'll change to secure funding
Secure funding.
for creating an economic development plan. Or, yeah. Secure funding, to create, that's fine. Okay, so this is staying on the longish side, that's what I hear from people. I'm inclined to want to draft a short prologue on the top so that people are clear that this year we have chosen more goals than usual, and we understand that, this is probably more than we can accomplish in 1 year, but it's a clear statement of what we would like to get done, what our goals are. And that's a different approach. Would that be an okay way to proceed to have? Okay, great. So we have the longest list. It's going down to line 18. And we'll write a prologue that I'll bring to the next meeting, and we will, I can work with staff on potentially, changing the capitalization and stuff like that. Make it a little all these things parallel. That's great. So we got short-term done. Yeah, it's still before 10 o'clock.
And
What was that?
I asked to see if we could get that list printed out for us,
Yeah, that
Thank you.
or shipped to us, or whatever.
Emailed. Okay, does anybody need a break before long-term? Okay. Okay, we have last year's long-term goals. To start off with, when you're ready, Lisa, we will go to, we'll look at last year's goals, the long-term goals.
John was projecting us, let's
Okay.
look at the long-term goals from last year.
So it's 2022.
Yeah, just scroll down and show us the long-term goals. Great, okay. So like before, we're gonna go over these and decide if they're done or not, and if they're not done, do we want to continue them in some form? So this is gonna generate our first few, or a few additional long-term goals. Number one, review bylaws to ensure consistency with Acton's sustainability and equity goals, and to consider passing a committee on the elimination of discrimination against women measure. So that was another one that was glued together, so let's talk about them one at a time. Review bylaws to ensure consistency with Acton's sustainability and equity goals. Would anybody like that to become continue to be a long-term goal?
Can I ask a question?
Please.
We were going to, John, do a review of bylaws, were we not? There was some initiative or program to review all of our bylaws for
Like fair housing, that was the fair housing review?
other criteria.
Well, so recodification of the bylaws is more of an administrative task. There's no substance would be reviewed, more of kind of how things work and don't work together. This is something, part of the bylaw review related to equity is something that Wanjico is going to be working on, likely with an outside consultant.
Mhm.
Just as part of the work plan that we've established, partly because it's a long-term goal of the board.
Okay.
And with equity, sustainability, I think Green Advisory does a pretty nice job with that.
Well, I'd certainly consider that on our list of long-term goals, that first phrase, if you can move that over. The second half is the consider passing a committee on the elimination of discrimination against women measure. And we've lost our expert on that, unfortunately. So I'm not sure if anyone wants to pick up the mantle. Hearing no, I'm just going to leave that there. Continue progress on climate action plan implementation is happening. Plenty more to do. And Andrea's already planning stuff. Seems like that would be a reasonable long-term goal. Okay, I see a couple nods, so we'll make sure that's on the list. I think we've already dealt with complete streets intersection improvements along Main Street no, not really, because we had the one about Hayward and Maine didn't make the short-term list. So if we want to continue to have this on the long-term list, that would at least represent that.
And also we've done initial work at Main and Prospect,
Right.
which is not very far advanced, but, and so this covered all those Main Street intersections.
Great, so let's leave that one as a long-term goal. Advancing the River Street Dam removal project, we've now moved that into the short-term goals. So it doesn't need to be a long-term goal unless there's a related long-term.
But I would like to see either combined with the way Alyssa was proposing or separately, a parks, long-term goal for both the Main Street Campus Park and the River Street Park.
Yeah. And because these are long-term, I don't have a strong feeling about separating them or not. If we want them to be together, I'm fine.
Did the Main Street Park make it onto the short term?
No, the Main Street Campus is not on a short-term list.
Okay. I think it's
Funding?
pretty close, I think.
Yeah, but this is in the 30s.
You know that, Lisa? Where did that?
Can we,
So I think what I've said, oh, Donnie, I think you're trying to compose,
I just wanted to confirm the question that was just asked,
Okay.
where that ended up on the short-term list. It said something about, advanced Main Street campus, I think it was.
I think it was secure.
Secured advanced Main Street campus monetary support was number 41, so it's in the top 40.
Oh, so it is,
okay, never mind.
So then maybe we could just, the River Street Park just belongs here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's advance the River Street Park project, yeah. That would be another long-term goal. And, work with the Human Services Committee, develop recommendations to support renters. Seems like that's still a long-term goal. Yeah.
You can just end the sentence after committee, period, and make it a long-term goal. No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to leave this.
Okay. Okay. So these are the, we've figured out how to carry over some of the long-term goals. Now we're gonna go do a round of asking each of us about long-term goals. Can we get to the long-term goal list? We've got a bunch of it.
I'll stop.
Long-term goal list got translated to long-term COVID.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've already got 2 through 11 with long-term goals. Are there additional long-term goals that anyone would like to add? David's got.
I have a question first. Do we need a separate long-term goal for electrified town buildings, or is that part of the climate action plan?
Oh, it's a great question. I'm okay either way.
I would kind of like it to be a separate long-term goal, because it's a little bit separate, right? It's the town keeping its own carbon house in order. So maybe electrified town buildings?
Great, slide that as a long-term. There it is, it's right there. Fran, you got any additional long-term goals?
So if I could just put here, ensuring that the economic development is part of the next master plan, would that be?
It actually has to be legally. We have to have a section in the comprehensive community plan that talks about the economy and finances.
So that's, it doesn't.
Yeah, but we could have complete the economic development plan, because we just had securing the funding previously.
So we don't need that right here.
Okay.
And I don't really have a lot of long-term goals.
Okay.
I was gonna maybe suggest to increase focus on EV charging infrastructure by the town.
That was from a previous year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's write that down.
And that was the only one I have.
Okay. Dave, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I would encourage us to keep an economic development plan in this, because again, what you just said, Jim, we could just secure the funding in the short-term goals, which means in fiscal year 25, we'd have to contract to some consultant, and so, I would like to see us keep that in there.
Well, this is the part where anybody can add something.
And the reason I think so is that, you know, the Economic Development Committee and others have asked for specific things in that, and I think keeping the goal here will have us remember those things that they asked for.
Okay, so let's write that one down, complete economic development plan.
I'll just ensure that, that it's in the master plan.
So complete economic development plan before the next master plan. I like to call it the comprehensive community plan.
Yeah.
Word master has his problems.
Oh, good point, thank you, yeah.
Melissa, you got some more long-term goals?
Address communication or or implement communication improvements. And this would have to do with increasing the user friendliness of the website, the navigability of it. You mentioned increased communication between boards. That's on here as well, either through those quarterly or annual meetings, or ActonTV segments. They do interviews on their own, but that maybe the board could give more input into those. I'd love to see a quarterly review of the short and long-term goals. I think we saw at least one of them over the last year, maybe two.
Yep.
Pushing out info on grant applications.
Let me just really,
Yeah,
because this
I
is
know,
getting to
it's
be this
broad.
long one, we need.
I guess
we
it's
need-
communication and transparency.
Okay.
Improving communication and
Okay.
transparency.
Improving communications and transparency, let's put it that way, and then
Okay.
when we get to it, we can.
Talk about
all
it.
those cool things, yeah. Dean, you got some more long-term?
Okay, yeah, I got a couple here, but here's a question. And maybe this is already in the master plan process anyway, but, looking at, when we do the master plan update, include lots of information about the physical infrastructure, make sure that we can actually support what we want to do. For instance, you know, it got me thinking about this, David Manlin wrote out about, you want to electrify everything, but, can Eversource actually deliver the electricity? So I think, you know, that needs to inform decisions made about the master plan and lots of other decision-making process. So it's engagement between the town and these utilities. So I think that's a worthwhile goal. The question is that something that would be normally included in the master plan anyway?
No. What would be mandatory in a plan would be the town-owned infrastructure.
Right.
So it sounds like there's different parts here. There's sort of understanding what capacity we need, and then there's also advocating for getting that capacity. I'm not sure how to summarize that, but help ensure grid resiliency might be that's a jargon phrase, but it covers a lot of what you're talking about.
I would say something like, as part of the master plan update, ensure utility infrastructure reliability.
Okay.
And I mean, you know, that also kind of begs the question about sewer capacity, drinking water capacity, and all that.
Right. Yeah. Well, utility covers a lot of territory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other long-term goals? Yes.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see one for sidewalks, whether we go with one that was similar to when we did make the cut in the short term, like to do some neighborhoods where there's strong support or safety need, or whether we just say continue the sidewalk program,
Accelerate the sidewalk program?
accelerate the sidewalk program would be fine with me. I mean, I'm sure you guys we all get some emails together, but I'm sure people talk to you about sidewalks and things they certainly do with me.
Yeah, the Transportation Advisory Committee has gotten back into talking about sidewalks, so they're sort of understanding the old work of the sidewalk committee and talking about whether they want to change it, but they have the same frustrations that everybody else has. It's like, it takes so much time and money to do a sidewalk, it's just really hard for us to make progress unless we make a big effort of it. Yeah. So if this year we secure funding, and then in the long term, that allows us to accelerate. Okay. I don't have any other long-term goals. Brian? No? Yeah.
Did anything about the 250 celebration?
Yep.
Did we move
Successful
it
funding
over?
for the 250 celebration. Yeah.
So I had just added another long-term goal that included the 250 celebration to make a more robust, provide a more robust community building amenities like events and whether it's space or events. So the 250 celebration, but
So,
other like fairs,
so
festivals.
we're talking about buildings or events? I wasn't sure.
Events. Well, yeah, you need spaces. We
Okay.
have some spaces. We have the senior center. We have Narrow Park Amphitheater. The logistics, I know that the senior center lease is up soon, 2 or 3 years from now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was actually when, come to me, I'm gonna talk about that.
Excellent.
yeah. Great. Let's see, let's hear your version.
Okay, so I think we're entering year 8 of the 10-year lease with the senior center.
Wow.
And I think we have to make, I believe there's 2 5-year options available on that lease, and I think we have to make a decision, start making a decision about that.
Okay.
I think that's, and, I think as part of that, I would hate to abandon that existing structure and all that, because we've invested a huge amount of money into it. And I think part of what we should look at is maybe, more innovative use of the space, like off hours when it's not filled with seniors. We talk about, we want to have a facility that's got a, full-scale kitchen in it, but we have 2 facilities, commercial kitchens in it, maybe we gotta use it. But anyway, the short term, my immediate long-term goal is decide on the lease. So we can have a lot of other discussions about what is implied by that.
Yeah. So we have both the question of the facility and we have the question of the activities, which are related. And that includes both.
And then I've got one more, defer to David, who's put that up on the list.
I have one more.
Okay.
I think this is a leading one because it will take a long time to plan to rehabilitate our fire stations. Except for Harrison Street, we don't need to rehabilitate that one. But the other, we need to, and as part of this plan, we need to decide how many we need to end up with, that kind of thing. And so
we should bite the bullet and say something about that in the goal. So rehabilitate or abandon. I don't know if that's too stark, but it at least lays the marker down that we understand that there might not really need to be 4 fire stations.
They'll be like the dog leash law.
Yeah.
I get 2,000 people at town meeting.
I don't know, David, it's your long-term goal.
I have some ideas here that are outside the scope of discussion here, but it could be put on
Plan
a select board agenda at some point.
Okay.
That we could discuss to see what we think. But I think maybe you should just say, planning for fire stations.
Yeah, that sounds nice and neutral, yeah. So Lisa, can you?
What was it?
Plans for fire stations.
Sorry.
General.
It feels general, like.
Others?
We did not get, I think maybe just one email about this, but I heard feedback from a lot of people while I was campaigning about non-citizens voting in local elections. So I'd like to add that.
Okay, that's a goal about non-citizens voting in local elections. Usually, so I think I had one, I'm remembering now, nope. The wording is something like, it's about bicycle infrastructure. Create a prioritized plan for bicycle infrastructure improvements.
That include everything from bikeways to tracks?
Yeah.
Or are you thinking of specific?
I was thinking of changes to roads, but I think it's better to keep it more general.
I have a question about 30 Sudbury. Dean, that was actually one of the things that I was referring to in terms of community amenities. Would you be amenable to adding, decide on the lease and explore expanded use or diversified use, like off hours?
Yeah, I mean, so long as it's not, putting we don't want to push the seniors out of the space. So if
But a complementary.
if the building is available and we're paying for it, and the seniors aren't using it on Saturdays and Sundays and after 5 o'clock at night, then it only makes sense that it be used, and we figure out a way to do it. And that's gonna involve staffing, access to the building and maintenance and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think anybody's, personally, I don't have a problem with people using it for these other community purposes, so long as the seniors are not inconvenienced by it, pushed out.
And we're allowed as a town to rent out that space, just like recreation, to the community, like we can rent out, there's a fee to use the pavilion or the amphitheater area.
That would be, I don't know what the wording of the lease would be, I don't know if we can sublet it. It would, well, yeah, really, because, and you really need to have staffing there, so you gotta have.
Sure, but like the school district.
Yeah, I don't,
allows community groups to come in and use the space, but you have to pay a fee, like Open Door Theater pays a fee to cover the cost of utilities and the custodian at the junior high school. I was wondering if the town has the ability to do that.
I don't know what the wording of the lease is on that,
Okay.
but I think it's, worth exploring.
Okay, so that can be covered in there the way it is.
So can we add
Oh, you like that some words?
Oh, that's what I was asking, if we
Yeah,
could
yeah.
add, to that, decide on the lease, explore expanded use.
Right,
Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
great, okay.
And one more.
Go for it.
So, again, this might be something that it's not a worthwhile long-term lease, but, gas-powered leaf blowers.
Oh, yeah, banning gas powered leaf blowers.
There's, on the one hand, they're extremely annoying and, because of the way they do the landscapers work in my neighborhood, you can listen to a leaf blower from 7 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night continuously.
Yeah, and they're incredibly polluting.
And then there's the pollution thing. On the other hand, a lot of the vendors are going to electric anyway.
Yeah.
For instance, Honda is not going to be making gas-powered lawnmowers anymore. They're all done at the end of the summer. So maybe you can make a long-term goal and then hope the manufacturers end up killing them off anyway. But I think enough people over the years have complained specifically about the noise, and then of course there's the pollution aspects of it as well, and then just for the people that are using them, this is why I wear hearing aids, is from being close to internal combustion engines for many years. And then, the people breathing all of the exhaust fumes.
Yeah.
So I think, and I know some other towns have started bringing in some bands. They usually bring in one that'll be, commercials have to be eliminated by a certain year, and the residential ones by another year.
Yeah, a lot of.
I think it's worth thinking about.
Yeah. I might generalize it to say gas-powered lawn equipment or maintenance equipment. Would that be too much?
Yeah, I think that's probably fits in with it too.
Okay. So, is that lawn maintenance equipment, is that, okay, wait, okay.
So does that mean lawnmowers?
Yeah, eventually, yeah. Yeah, I'm very
Lawns are gonna
proud,
be overgrown and.
I'm proud of my, I'm very happy with my electric lawnmower.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the ultimate Luddite, a hiking buddy, Dave Acton, on himself a riding electric lawnmower. He's delighted with it.
Nice.
I don't
The short side of your
my
lawnmower.
gasoline powered lawnmower.
It's happening, we have an electric, but I couldn't even walk in.
Electric lawnmowers work just as well and don't cost more.
I just invested in a rotary one, push,
Oh, yeah, that's another alternative.
yeah,
Simple, no electricity, no gas.
Yeah, there are other things like
yeah.
chainsaws work okay, but they're not as good as their
Yeah.
gas counterparts.
Yeah.
And some of the things that require lots of power, they're much more expensive, like a snow blower. It works as well, but you need a lot of battery.
It's probably the time for me to reel us back in. Are there any more, long-term goals? Because I think our next step is to, well, is there any more consolidation that needs to happen?
Can you go back to line 2 just for a second? Can I just remove the word successful there?
Yeah.
Just funding for the 250 celebration.
Yeah. I don't have any changes to suggest.
And maybe the next one, since it's a long-term goal, right? Funding for the,
Increasing which one?
the word approve in line 3.
Well, how about just construction of the DPW building?
That's fine too.
Yeah.
And that would also suggest we just change exploring and to get rid of that, so just say increasing youth involvement on committees. That's okay, people?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Great.
Is, the communication and transparency specific enough for people to understand what that means?
It is to me, because you're talking about communication from the town and within the town.
Oh, and I think it should be approved instead of denied.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I think you could put more words there.
Yeah,
If someone reads it a year from now, they need to understand what you meant without you being there.
I think it needs more words too.
Okay, I mean, you can even see.
I'll be here for 3 years.
Improve town communications?
Or I think
Can-
improve communication between the town and the public. That,
I don't think it's.
It has to do with the website,
Mhm.
right? That's
Yeah.
the communication with the vehicle.
Mhm.
And also information coming from the town to the public.
Mhm.
So where are we in our goal progress? Are we applying, what monies are we chasing? How did we restructure
Instead of
departments?
communication, why don't we just say improve upon the website or be specific?
Improve communication and transparency, including, website improvements and outreach, maybe? Cause all of that other stuff is outreach,
Yeah,
right?
including website and other outreach.
And we didn't have website anywhere else in the short
Correct. Yeah,
term.
it was a long-term goal last year or the year before.
And it's something we keep hearing over and over.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Outreach, I think, was the last word we were missing. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe public outreach, so it's clear.
Yeah. Right. Let's be on every social media platform.
Oh, that's okay. I knew what you were thinking, Lisa.
Okay, this is a fine list. We've got 22 items. We could print it out and do the number thing.
and the numbers from 1 to
20, I'm just.
20, start at 20, numbered it.
really again to 20, even though there's only 20
Yeah, you don't have to use all 20, I'm only gonna pick 5 or 6, but I just wanna have the same scale, so we, you know, we can compare them. 100 is still the top.
So use 20 points, 15 points about 8.
Yeah. So I think now you're printing, right, Lisa? Okay. Another brief informal recess while we do printing and marking up.
I really love the sign in the bathroom that says, do not touch the soap dispenser.
Were you reading it like that, or does it really say, do not touch this?
It's actually an entire paragraph, that's just the last sentence. Because it's a hand, so they don't want people pushing on it or,
Yeah,
you know, breaking it, pulling it off the wall. Yeah, go check it out.
I'm definitely use it. Yeah, yes.
She's very David.
Okay, such a pencil person. I'm a pencil person. Yeah. Did you have like one of the real short ones?
Short ones and the long ones.
Pencil. Breaking.
There's plain.
Tips. Yeah. The bullet.
So you can still do sharp.
That's funny.
Probably not in the job description.
There's a lot of things.
Oh, okay. The meeting must be almost over because my computer's running out of power.
What kind of connector does it charge with?
Oh, who knows, some proprietary something or other.
Oh, charger too.
I do have a charger, I'm too far away from the outlet, so
Yeah.
I can actually overcome that. I haven't really been using my computer, I've just been taking notes. Well, listen, Fran and I have now been to training on how to be a select board member. That was fun.
That was very interesting.
Yeah. We got a thick but out-of-date handbook on how to be a select board member. Yeah.
What is
Solidarity.
the edition that's on?
They're in the middle of rewriting it. I don't know what's online, but they're in the middle of rewriting it.
So it's not yet out of date.
No,
It's
no.
not the most up to date.
Yeah, that is the most up-to-date one that there is, but they were saying it's about to be.
It's about to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
I was imagining. Say that.
We are on Zoom. Yeah,
But
there's 10 people
we all
watching.
have the same, you know, issues.
Yeah, I know that.
It's very big, because
Yeah. So because I'm remembering that I plugged my laptop in at that training, and went over to Walmart again. But then I managed to go home without the charger. I went back the next day.
Yeah, that isn't that far.
it's a great, it's
Yeah, Devon's Common Center, so nice little conference center. Waiting
All right, we
then.
starting 20.
Yep, 20 at your top priority. Go down as far as you want. But I can say it ahead of time, I'm not gonna choose 18.
Hey, we don't have to be in circling here.
No, it's just it's in the capital
Just in the
plan.
capital plan, okay.
Yeah. Didn't hear anybody say, let's not do it.
Oh, I'm filling out in Dean's column.
Oh.
For Pete's sakes.
Oh, I'll give you the scores you're supposed to fill.
Fifth one,
Um,
7, 8, 9, 10, and also the 11.
so what should we do? Should we ignore one of them?
We need to ignore the same one.
Okay, let's all ignore the electrify several town buildings and just vote on electrify town buildings.
I didn't see the other side of you today.
I couldn't find the spreadsheet. No, not to share, we gotta do our data.
Oh, that's right. I know, I haven't seen people do.
Yeah, okay. 18.
Oh, and we were eliminating number 5, election by
That's one,
someone.
2, 3, 4, 5, 0.
So,
That's accounted for, you don't know about that.
Okay.
I mean, what you said.
oh, okay, so can you go back to?
Yeah.
Table 17.
Grade 15.
Here's the missing piece.
0. 20. 3 zeros. And grade 13. And that's it.
So these are all zeros? Yeah.
Planting. That's what I think I'm gonna do.
0.
Exactly, I mean, just planting flowers or kind of. Yeah.
White 16.
Our yard is expensive,
3 zeros.
takes a lot of time.
Got line one down, line do the whole thing in just under
18.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
0, 0.
Neil was telling me when
15.
I saw him here for the circle Saturday, that he had Otis on earlier in the day.
doesn't he have a big one? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't.
It was
He
said she was 4 hours.
Mine,
Oh, right, 4 hours. I don't know if he said 2 or 4 hours.
He's also doing conservation and
Yes.
stresses his health and making it for everybody else. Yeah.
12.
I'm
9.
4 hours.
10.
And then I went with the line mower. With the electric guy, and eliminated the one bit, which is around 0.1s and all that, and that area actually got bigger this spring.
19.
good.
One landscape and stuff.
7.
And then, it's
3.
here's my blueberry bushes, I'm
18.
basically.
Blueberry bushes?
Yeah.
Nice. He had.
You know, we felt harvest.
Cause then it flies.
Oh,
Not one.
Red winged blackbirds.
oh, yeah. I have a friend who has 8 or 10 big bushes, like they're really tall, they're taller than me, and they have them netted
0.
over and over and running.
Yeah.
20.
So many blueberries.
That's cool.
17.
What
Yeah.
did you find?
I used straight line with the netting,
Yeah.
15.
and then I found out this, the last one I finally gave up was it kept all the letters like. It
8.
also allowed the race horse to have the perfect spot
14.
protected from all of the raccoons.
11.
So I ended up using paint and actually breaking them. And then the result of that
17.
was just Big jams are kind of birds.
Yeah.
Thank you,
It is very sad when it gets a chipmunk.
15.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, six.
And it was a hand disentangled from those nets.
Somebody said to me one time, they're looking at the fishes, and
So
so
like 20,
she killed that egg robins here.
2 zeros, 18, 0, 13, 0, 16.
What's it?
And she had one on the face glass.
So I think the same thing with the rod.
Holes for feeders. You can't get in the regular feeders.
Oh, what are their owners?
Regular feeders. If they jump on them and tip them up like this, pull that finisher.
They are.
Clever and evil.
Yes. I went through a period where I'd spray paint on the light post so it was kind of just, but it wouldn't last. So,
Oh.
my attention span for that.
Okay.
Now go to long term.
As long as they're to proceed.
Have you seen videos of the squirrel in winter?
They're so
And then we share.
Oh, that's so funny.
Okay, we're reassembling, about to see the live results again. Boom, okay.
Nice.
Oh, we've got, I want to see a big jump between some other numbers, but let's see how we go here. Yeah, that's what I was noticing too. There's a gap between number 8 and number 9. So that would be construction of the DPW building, decide on the lease and explore expanded use for 30 Sudbury location, funding for the 250 celebration event, complete economic development plan before the comprehensive community plan, advance the River Street project, park project, continue progress on climate action plan implementation, and explore ban on gas-powered lawn maintenance equipment. I don't know, that seems like the biggest gap right there. We can continue working on those other things, but those are, definite things. Because we can always work on improving communications in little bits and pieces, but the others are, well, except for the continued progress on climate action plan implementation. That's also that's not a particular specific goal, but it's important to many of us, I guess, because they got 55. Any other thoughts about that list?
8 is a good number. Half hour or two.
Yep.
Okay. That's our long-term goals for the next 12 months. And on, beyond that.
So from 2 to 8?
Yep.
Yes.
So just some temporary stuff.
Right.
I have a question on the comprehensive community plan. When is the start date? I remember we have funding already secured for it.
Well, it's in the capital improvement plan. But
Is it 2025?
2025?
It's over 2 years, probably starting next year, and it has to be approved, so it's not, it's in the plan, but there's a lot of things in the plan
Yeah.
that we need to prioritize, so things like this help us.
But I don't think we have secured funding. It's just in the plan.
Oh,
That's what I was gonna say, it's just in the plan, we don't have any money for it, it's in the plan
okay.
to ask town meeting to fund it.
So if the comprehensive community plan update needs to be in the priorities, does that mean that we should think about putting it in for next year since it's not actually in either short-term or long-term goals this year? Because I didn't add it, because Jim said it's in the capital plan.
Oh,
And I'm not suggesting we do this all over again, I just wanna know
for next year, because we are now, I thought there was a solid plan for timing for when it would get started, and I also thought that there was a grant, MAPC grant for it.
There may be, a grant, we don't.
No, I thought we had already secured a grant for the process.
Well, if we were doing a brief checkout, that would be a checkout comment, said, hey, it seems like we forgot the comprehensive community plan, let's not lose track of that next year.
Okay.
We did mention it, we said, let's get the business plan, let's get the economic development plan before the comprehensive community plan, so at least the words got mentioned. Yeah.
And I like that, I like, having the economic development plan serve as a foundation along with the other plans.
Yeah, like we didn't mention the open space and recreation plan, but that's completing, hopefully this year. Yeah. Any other final comments on, learnings about, how this went? Any things we'd want to do different next year, or things that we liked about this year?
Sure. I'm chair just so that.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, David?
I think it went pretty well. Maybe a step to combine or split goals, but of course we spend a lot of time, and another pass through takes more time. So, I think their result is reasonable to me. I'm always surprised, not displeased at all, surprised. It's interesting to see what the five of us combine.
I know that, yeah, I do.
I mean, I began to think earlier tonight about, doing short-term goals one night and long-term goals another night. It's a lot to get through in one night.
But the long-term ones never take very long.
No, that's true. But is that just because we're so exhausted and we want to get through them quickly, or?
No.
I think because they're simpler.
Oh, yeah.
Right, they're more general.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are fewer of them.
And they're carrying over, so we're informed by the previous year more.
Yeah, and we can be grand without having to carefully carve it back, just, we're gonna get this thing done. We don't know how many years it's gonna take, but we're just gonna get it done.
I think it went pretty well. The timing seemed to be about the time as, like the times I remember from all the previous.
Okay.
And the scoring worked fine. I think I would strongly oppose just putting it up into 2 separate nights. I think it's better off just to get it done, get it out of there. And yeah, these long-term goals, I mean, they fell into place in, half an hour.
Yeah.
We're all prepped for them.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was fatigue. I think it was just, we assembled all the information we needed and we moved quickly.
I agree with that, I wouldn't want to do it in 2 nights because there's continuity of the short-term goals inform the long-term goals. I very much appreciated being able to vote for 20 of 36 or 37 rather than being forced to choose just 10. I don't know what my past numbers, I liked having that large number because there was, even though we all had big numbers, there was a very clear break spread between one and the next in terms of points.
Fortunately, we only had 5.
Yeah.
I think I remember that, and I also remember some folks throwing in like all their votes to one goal.
Yeah.
So I think that this allows us to not have to do that, which is risky, right?
I think the previous years we looked at it, and even when I was on staff and they report back to us, it was usually a very clear break. It was like above the line, below the line, there was always a big gap right there, so I think it seems tallied quite well. 15 years of volunteers participating in it.
I do think the 20 makes fewer gaps.
Yeah.
And it's okay, it just,
I remember 2 years ago, though, there was a
big chunk where they were all the same value or within a point and you had to do a second round of elimination.
Yes,
Right, yeah, that is the nice thing about the 20 points, is
I was
the
expecting that.
finer distinctions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Any other thoughts?
So just confirming, Lisa and John are meeting up the list, and next meeting, it's kind of pro forma, we just vote to approve the list of goals.
Yeah, I mean, unless something comes up.
Right, I'm just,
But that's the plan.
that's,
Yeah,
With the code.
yeah, I'll drop their phone.
Can you send us the raw material, like,
Oh, yeah, you'll be right.
for both of those? COA board meetings, I wanna know.
Yeah.
And so just so, when you see the spreadsheet, there's 4 tabs.
Mhm.
okay,
The first 2 are the short-term and the long-term goals that were the resulting discussion. The 3rd and 4th are the raw results from when we tallied it.
Mhm.
Because after short-term goals were tallied, the board, you made a couple of tweaks to the list.
Mhm.
So that's where you'll see the difference. So the raw is just exactly what you voted, exactly what was up there. And the other one is how it ended up in long term. I don't know that there was much changing
Mhm.
between the raw and the tally, but just so you know why there's 4 tabs and not 2.
Mhm. Cool. All right, thanks, everyone. That's good, absolutely.
I move to adjourn?
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned.
What time is your meeting tomorrow morning? 10:00. Oh, mine's at 8.